What is up, everybody? We are live for night 2 of the Salary Cap Summit. I am your host, Drew Davenport, with the Auction Brief, sponsoring this amazing 3-night event where all of us who love this format, the salary cap, the auction, however you want to call it, we all love this format. And that's why we're doing this, because I'll tell you what, this is one of the most underserved areas in all of fantasy football. That is the auction draft scene, the salary cap draft. There's just not enough content out there for it. And tonight, we're going to help you out with that, because last night we already did auction number 1. We had 2 hours and 15 minutes of live commentary on auction number 1. That was a 1 QB with kickers and Ds straight up the middle, 16-man rosters. We already did that last night. Tonight, we're going to switch it up a little bit. I brought in the heavy hitters from the Peanut Gallery. I'll tell you what, this is the Peanut Gallery, folks. If you've been in the group chat with these guys the last couple of days, it's absolutely hilarious, but I love having these guys here. We got the veteran crew on tap for the Superflex draft. We are going to do something different than we did last night by doing the Superflex. No kickers, no defenses, straight up drafting position players. Tonight's auction is going to be on fire. I want to just talk for just a quick minute before we get into the auction, because I want to let some people get in here. Some of the most fun parts of the auction are getting into the draft itself right when it starts. I know that we got the guys in the draft room chomping at the bit. I'm going to share that screen in just a second. So what you're going to see on your screen is me in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm not the star of the show. I'm just the guide to help you along while we're watching this auction tonight. We're going to watch every second of the auction until we get down to the $1 players, and we're in that glorified snake situation where we're just popping off $1 players. So we're going to go until that happens. And in the first part of this auction, that's what we all want to be watching. It's the most fun part, obviously, because we get all the big names out there, but it's a super flex, so things are going to be a little bit different than last night. I am hyped up on blueberry lemonade slushy and the prospect of 2 more hours of live auction drafting. I'm stoked that you're all here. I think it's time to get it going. The numbers are climbing, so I just wanted to give it a second for everybody to get in here. But what we're going to do is we're going to start this auction up. None of these guys are in the chat or are being hopefully influenced by something I mentioned last night, that Hawthorne effect, where we are looking in on something, and hopefully things aren't going to change because we're watching it. But hey, I've been in the draft room with a lot of these guys that are in this room tonight. They know what they're doing. This is not a group that you want to mess with if you're getting into an auction room. They've kicked my butt all over the field in the last couple of years in the listener league. So I think we're rolling now. We're approaching 200 people in the room. Let's get this baby going. I know these guys are ready to go. And I tell you what, the most beautiful sight was waiting for me when I logged into the draft room tonight, and all of these guys were ready to go. The green dots were staring me in the face. That means we are ready to rock. Everybody is in there locked and loaded. Junior 141 is going to be on the clock here. Now remember, we have early 30-second nomination, 30-second bid time. It's going to go a little bit slower at the beginning, but that's by design, because we want to get those big players out there, and we want those weighty decisions to have some impact early in the draft. We're going to go about 8 or 9, maybe 10 rounds with that 30-second clock, but things are going to move fast, and I am not going to stop running my FWM the entire night, except to take a little bit of my sugar drink so I can keep us going through the whole 2.5 hours. Are we ready, folks? Junior, gentlemen in the veterans draft room, let's get it going. The first nomination of the Salary Cap Veterans League Superflex, number 2. We are underway. And the nomination is going to come out here in just a second. We're going to get it going. So we're going to talk a lot about Superflex strategy tonight. It's one of those things that everyone asks me about all the time. And I tell you what, if I had the ability to get out more content in a summer, I would do some more focusing on Superflex. But I got to tell you, a lot of the folks that love the Superflex format don't realize that it's actually not as widespread as you might think it is. Superflex is gaining popularity, but there are still a ton of people in their home leagues playing a straightforward 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, flex, kicker, D sort of system. Okay. So the first nomination out of the gate is Christian McCaffrey. I love this kind of thing because Christian McCaffrey is not the top of the position. He's also not a quarterback. So it's a bit of a curveball. We're going to see the market figure out how people are feeling early on in the draft because it's a bit of a different nomination. And I love this kind of nomination. It's a bit of a thinker. It's something that maybe you probably weren't prepared for. How much am I willing to pay for Christian McCaffrey this early in the draft? We know that the top position players, the top running backs and wide receivers, they're going to be more of a discount than we typically see in this type of draft because of the Superflex format. All right, so we had our first guy become rostered there, and that was Christian McCaffrey for $37. I think that's a fun little price because it's really a nice point of discussion here for us because McCaffrey is the type of guy that you do want to get out there early to establish what's going to happen with your draft. And this is why I love, hey, I know these guys are listening to me because this is the perfect kind of nomination early in the draft. Because I'm guessing that some of the guys in this room are seeing what I'm telling you all the time about the Superflex format, which is that a lot of times if you go at the running back and wide receiver position early, then you're going to be able to get some deals because people are saving their money for quarterbacks. That's just what happens. That's normal, and we understand that. But a lot of times the tendency is for people to come out in the Superflex hot and heavy on the quarterbacks. You don't have to do that. And you can remind people that you don't have to do that by just making a different nomination. And we've got a cagey room of drafters here. I've been telling you guys that since we started the broadcast tonight, that these guys are going to make some interesting nominations, some interesting plays. They're not going to go straight up the middle. And that's why I love this group. I'm not saying that the group last night didn't know what they were doing. They did a great job. But this group has been doing auctions for a long time. And a lot of these guys are hardcore supporters that listen to the show all the time, that are deep into the auction theory, and they're gonna test the boundaries of what can happen in a Superflex room. And this is evidence right here because we started out with McCaffrey. He goes for 37. The second nomination is Devon Achane for 31. That's a really fun nomination. Why? Because we know right now that he's banged up a little bit and that he's going to take some time to get back on the field with a calf injury. And then on top of that, we know that we still don't have a quarterback out there yet because we're in one of the first couple nominations. So is the room going to be cold? Are they going to be cold on a guy that's possibly injured? And can I get a deal? Turns out the answer is yes to both of those. Devon Achane for $31 is a fabulous deal if he ends up being healthy and playing most of the year with Tua Tagovailoa. So that's a great deal. $31 for Achane. I love that coming out of the gate. And then Jamar Chase goes for 47. Now, again, we're seeing the effect of the Superflex format here, right? The Superflex format is going to do a couple things. Of course, we know it's going to make the quarterback prices at a premium. We get that. That's not the point here. The point is that it's going to have a depressive effect on the other positions. But it's different because it's not just going to be an automatic, like, hey, we're going to get 15% off of every position. That's not really how it goes. That's not how it works, okay? Brian makes the point 3 weeks before the season starts, a calf injury for Achane. I get it. It's scary, but that's why he gets the huge discount on Achane. That's a really nice price. And if he ends up being on the field, that's going to be a good deal. But back to the point about the quarterbacks and how this affects other positions. These guys, like I said, they're veteran auction drafters. They're in the room and they're saying, okay, I can get some deals on some other positions. Brock Bowers just went for 20. Again, we haven't seen Bowers go for less than 30 in a typical 1 QB league. So what's happening here is these guys are going hard at some other positions. And it's something that I love to preach, that one of the things that people mistake in auctions, it doesn't matter if it's Superflex or regular auctions, people think that if they call out the high-priced players that they don't want, that's benefiting them. And I want to go into this real quick because it's something that I think that we all need to remember when we're doing auctions. And it's a problem because it's a bit counterintuitive. It's one of those things where it doesn't sound super logical. The other way actually sounds more logical. It sounds logical to say, okay, well, I don't care about Lamar Jackson because he's going to be too expensive. So I'm going to nominate Lamar Jackson, and somebody's going to spend $48 for him because it's a Superflex, right? And then everyone thinks, hey, that's great. You pulled $48. You hurt somebody else in the room because they spent that money and now they've got that roster position filled. But that sounds logical. That's all very logical, like way of bing, 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 taking yourself down the road. But that's not actually how it works, because the psychology of it is what you got to get into. And that's what's important with this type of drafting, is you have to get into the psychology of what does it mean when you leave a player like that on the board. So is it more beneficial for me to leave Lamar Jackson on the board and say, hey, I'm leaving that money out there to tie up the expectation in people's minds that they may still be able to get Lamar Jackson, or is it more beneficial for me to have somebody spend the money? And what I'm telling you is, I believe that it's more beneficial to leave the player on the board. Now, I know, again, it sounds counterintuitive. I don't want you guys to walk away from this and be like, well, that doesn't sound right, because here's how it works. And I've said this on the show before, and if you've been a listener, you know how I feel about this. But if you believe that a certain player is going to go, let's just make it easy for my math. Let's believe that if you believe a certain player is going to go for $50, and you say, I don't want that player at all. So you nominate that player so that they can spend $50 on somebody else's roster. Let me tell you something. Somebody else in that room wanted that $50 player, okay? Somebody wanted them. And it's not just that one person. There could be 4 people in the room. Let's say that 4 people wanted that player, and you leave them on the board. That ties up $200 in the total amount of cap space that you're tying up right there. That's 4 players thinking about spending $50 on this player. That ties up a lot more money than it does to just give those players in the room certainty. Why would you want to give those players certainty? Why would you want to bail them out and say, hey, you know now that you're not getting the player. So these 3 people who didn't get the $50 player, they know now that they have that money free and they can spend it on something else. And the player who got it says, hey, I already got my guy. Now I can focus on something else. Why would you want to give those 4 players the certainty of knowing how that's going to shake out? Let them be uncertain, right? Because you guys are more prepared. I'm here to tell you that if you're on this stream, you're already better than 98% of the drafters out there that you're going to see in an auction draft room. You just are, because you care, because you're trying, because you listen. It doesn't mean that you take every lesson and you nail it immediately. It just means that you're listening and you know that you're trying to work on these concepts. Okay. So you have to trust the process, that in these situations, the counterintuitive thing sometimes is the thing that you have to pay attention to. It is how it works. Even if you think, hey, I'm not sure about what he's saying here. I'm not sure that that's exactly right. Okay. So you need to really incorporate this into the Superflex format. I believe it's beneficial to leave those quarterbacks on the board and to hammer away at your running backs and wide receivers until you feel pretty good about where they are, and then go get your quarterbacks. Because I think there's value there to be had while everyone else has their money in their head. It's a psychological thing. I'm telling you, not everybody's sitting there with a par sheet. And in fact, most people are not sitting there with a par sheet. Now, this group tonight, I would guess that most of them have a par sheet. But in most draft rooms you're going to be in, they don't have a par sheet. They don't know exactly what they're going to spend on a quarterback. That uncertainty is where you make your living. You make your living on them being uncomfortable, them being uncertain about what they're going to spend, while you're locked in to say, hey, I already know I'm spending 32 on my QB1, and Dak just went for 31. So I know that I can get a quarterback for around that price in a little bit. So you don't have to nominate the quarterback. You can be free about it and feel good about it until some scarcity starts to creep in. You know what you're going to do because you have your plan. And that's what makes an elite auction drafter, understanding that you don't just have to land that player. You handle the uncertainty because of your preparation and because of your par sheet. And handling that uncertainty is why you're better than the people in the room with you. All right. Let's run through a couple things that have happened because we've now got some quarterbacks off the board. Let me get a drink of my energy juice here. This is called a health drink. It's got blueberry in it. No, it does not. It's got blueberry flavoring. Oh, I just came off the 90-degree soccer field trying to cool my core temperature. But I got all kinds of energy for this thing because I'm having a blast. What have we done recently? Okay, Bowers went for 20. Zach Charbonnet went for 7. That's an interesting early nomination. And we've got 4 quarterbacks set in the market right now. This is part of what we really want to start to dial in here, because where did the tiers, what tiers did they come from? And what are those prices telling us about how the other quarterbacks around them are going to be slotted? So Joe Burrow went for 42. Initially, I thought, boy, that's a little bit high. But compared to where the other players have gone, I think Burrow's price is going to turn out to be fairly solid, because we had Drake May go for 30, we had Patrick Mahomes go for 32, and we had Dak Prescott go for 31. So those are not crazy prices, but I would submit that they're a little high. They're a little high. I think we're a little hot at quarterback, and we're a little bit cold on the other positions. And I know these guys, like, look, these guys really know what they're doing, and they might even be listening to me right now. But I got to say, that is something that you have to pay attention to in Superflex. You are going to see the quarterback gold rush. You have to know how you're going to handle it. And sometimes, and this is a problem I have. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. This is a problem I have in Superflex drafts. I'm not very good at saying to myself, I have to go in there and land a quarterback over the value that I expected to pay. I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want to go into this situation and say, I was going to spend 32 for my top quarterback, and then Trevor Lawrence ends up going for 38, and I have to dump a bunch of money at him. I'm not good at that. Okay. But I've preached to you guys for years something that I'm not good at, which is part of the reason that I preach it. And that is that sometimes you got to overpay. If the room's hot for a certain position, you just got to overpay. There's nothing you can do about it, because you can't leave a Superflex draft and not pay attention to the right thing, which is having 3 quarterbacks when you leave the draft. That's not easy to do, and not every team is going to have 3, but sometimes that's the most important thing here. I saw Lamar Jackson go off the board. I probably should not have been talking about Lamar Jackson earlier when he wasn't nominated yet, so that's my bad. But Jackson ends up going for 50. That's about what I would expect. I don't expect many players to go for upper 40s. I think we've got our market set now. So we've got Jackson at 50. We got Burrow at 42. We're going to see Daniels, Hurts, and Josh Allen slot right in there between Burrow and Jackson. It's very possible with some scarcity issues that somebody's going to go north of Jackson because he's the last running quarterback left. But we're going to see some slotting start to happen here, and then it's going to tumble down the tiers until we see a little bit, we're going to see some weird prices on quarterbacks that shouldn't necessarily be there, because of the fact that these guys know what they're doing, and they know that they have to pay up for these quarterbacks. All right, so right now we just saw Amon-Ra St. Brown go for 38, and we are currently bidding on Chase Brown. So I love being in a veteran room like this, because one of the things that I talk about all the time, and I've already alluded to it earlier in the show, is that you don't just want to become laser focused on quarterbacks just because it's a super flex. It almost feels like sometimes when people get in this type of draft, they get in it and they have a feeling like it's a snake almost. Like, these guys are the most valuable, so I'm going to call them out early. And you just want to make sure that you're not falling into that trap. And you don't want to be sitting there saying, okay, because this guy's valuable, I'm going to nominate him next. What do we know about nomination strategy that I preach nonstop to all you? It's just that you have to have a reason, and the reason has to be something that furthers your goals in the draft. What are you trying to accomplish in this room early in the draft? Because that's going to change, right? That's going to change between what you thought you were going to do in the first couple rounds and what has happened in the room already, right? And when we talk about inflection points, I talked about this last night. The inflection points aren't just league inflection points. They're your inflection points as well. There are 2 kinds. Because if you thought to yourself, boy, I really think that Drake May is going to go for low 20s, and that was part of your plan, was I'm going to get him as my QB2 in the mid to low 20s, and then you just went for 30, that's an inflection point for you, right? Because you have to then change your strategy. You have to move off of what you were thinking that you were going to do. Things happen in the room that are inflection points for you and only you. And then there are things that happen that change the entire room. Okay. So I believe that Lamar Jackson is one of those things. It doesn't change the room, but it dictates the behavior of everyone going forward because he is seen as the first or second best quarterback. All right. So what just happened? We had CeeDee Lamb get nominated. So we are not necessarily staying away from high priced players, but we're not making a run at all quarterbacks. Okay. So we got CeeDee Lamb for 46, Ken Walker for 25. So you can see what's happening here. We're getting a small discount on most of this top talent, but it's not a crazy discount. And I'm going to tell you that in the Superflex format, what happens inevitably is that the mid to lower tiers, like your bottom of RB2 into the RB3, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, like the bottom of that wide receiver 2, RB2 tier, it just starts to fall off a cliff. And that happens really more because the money has left the room and because people just don't have money left more than anything. So just remember that you're going to see a little bit of a depressed value at the top, but it's not going to be as much as you think. Like we're seeing Chase and Lamb go for 47, 46. Those are lower, but it's not a huge discount, right? But we're going to see big discounts later in the draft on your low end RB2, wide receiver 2, and into the lower tiers. That's just how Superflexes work because you spend so much money on those starting quarterbacks. All right, who did we just have go? We just had Ken Walker go for $25. We had Chase Brown go in there for $40. Look, I love Chase Brown, but that feels a bit high for a Superflex. Now, Scott, who landed Chase Brown, Scott really knows what he's doing. Scott's been in several of my leagues. He knows how to auction. I'm guessing that he has a pretty premium price on Brown in general and felt like that was a reasonable deal that he could swallow. We had Saquon Barkley go for 38. That's what I mean by feeling like Brown is a bit of an outlier there because Barkley goes for 38 when Brown goes for 40. I think we'd all agree that pre-draft anyway, that seems like it's a little bit backwards. It's not crazy. It's not out of bounds. These guys are never going to do anything crazy in this room. I'm here to tell you. These guys are too solid to do anything crazy. Well, let's get some health juice. Oh boy, when I'm talking, all that syrup goes to the bottom. Folks, I don't think that's a good thing for all of y'all because it's about to get weird in here. Are we ready? It's about to get weird in here. All right. What just happened? We got to get these numbers up, folks. Share this live. These numbers are lagging. Maybe it's the Superflex format. Can I go out and say, ha, told you so to all these people thinking that Superflex is the dominant format right now? Because right now we're lagging way behind the numbers from last night in the live viewing. Maybe people are just tired. Hell, I'm tired of me. Are you guys tired of me yet? I'm tired of my own FWM. All right, what's going on in the room? Bucky Irving went for 31. Same price as Achane. And then we're currently bidding on Drake London. Again, folks, I got to say it again. Veteran room. These guys are hitting top players, but they're not necessarily devouring quarterbacks, which is interesting. So Drake London goes for 47. That's an interesting price for London. Is that Ed? Ed, what's up? Go Hoosiers. IU. London's price is a little bit elevated, but I can see what's going on here, right? There's a bit of a rush here. Uh-oh, guys. Just got a breaking update. Jonathan Mingo is banged up. Everybody in the draft room, listen up. Don't bid a lot on Jonathan Mingo, okay? Just letting you guys know. All right, what do we have going on? Let's not lose our energy here. We're going. Let's go. Amarian Hampton, interesting nomination. So this is one of the first nominations that's down the tier sheet. So like I said, these guys know what they're doing, but they're also hammering away at the top players. When I sit there in the auction brief week in and week out, and I tell you, you don't have to nominate the top players because somebody will do it for you. We're watching this in real time. These guys all know what they're doing. None of these guys is inexperienced, but people want to get those top players out because they want to know what they're going to spend. You can nominate whoever the hell you want to nominate to make it go your way. All right? Is everyone hearing? Oh, Lord, you guys are listening to this the whole time. You don't want to listen to that, do you? Why did somebody tell me? You don't want to listen to that stuff. Okay. I turned it off and muted that for you. So Kevin's noticing, were you trying to sneak Charbonnet in with that nomination? Saw you wait until the end on the bidding to get back in. I love it. I love it. I love it. I see people using some of these strategies we talk about. I absolutely love it. So Puka goes up and he's $36. Let me ask y'all in the chat, drop in the chat, anybody who's here, do you think that Puka Nacua goes for $36 if Matthew Stafford had not practiced today? Drop it in the chat. Tell me what you think. I'm gonna say the three most interesting answers on the air. But do we think Puka Nacua goes for $36 in this format if Matthew Stafford doesn't practice today? Let's say they say, nah, he's not quite ready yet. What does Puka go for? I agree, Matt. Matt says, nope, no way he goes for 36 without that practice today from Stafford. What's anybody else think? What do you think he goes for in this format at this point in the season if he didn't practice today? If they said, nah, he's going to get out there and practice, he's going to go. Brian says it seems like a value already. I think that is a value already. I took Puka in the Kings Classic auction for $39. I feel like that was a deal. Brian says he's right around $40. I don't disagree, but what if Stafford hadn't practiced today? What do you think Puka's going for in this room? He's easily dropping another $5, right? Like he's not going for 36 if Stafford's. And Matt says he's a little worried because Adams is there. I don't disagree. Adams is a goal line merchant, but Puka's never been a big touchdown guy. So I kind of don't care a ton about the goal line stuff. And that's not what Matt said in the chat there. Matt said he's just worried about Adams, period, which I don't disagree. Adams is still very good at what he does. All right, let's go back and see what we're doing. Omari and Hampton ended up going for 26. That's a fun price. Although I got to say, it's not a super big discount. And, I missed a quarterback in here. Baker Mayfield goes for 25. Oh, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, can I just say, you know what? I'm mad. Now I'm mad. We're done. I'm out of here. Turning this ish off. Y'all let Ryan get Mayfield for 25. Look, I'm not a Baker guy. I'm not a Baker guy, but $25 for Baker? You let Ryan do that to you? Ryan won the listener league. He's beating me in my fantasy surfing league. Look, let me just tell a story that nobody gives a crap about. I'm in a fantasy surfing league with 12 dudes from Hawaii. Okay. It's me in Ohio and 12 dudes from Hawaii. I won that freaking thing. I took it down. That's my third title in 7 years against all these dudes from Hawaii. And here's Ryan Boss hopping into my surfing league and keeps beating me up. I'm done with it, man. I'm done with it. Ryan, you're banned. Done with you. $25. No, look, let's be serious for a second. The Baker Mayfield price is interesting because this is something I talk about all the time. I'm going to say it again. You're going to get tired of hearing me say it, but I don't want you to forget. This is a super big lesson. I sent out some par sheets this week on Superflex stuff. Ryan's in the chat. Love you too, buddy. Also, you're banned. You're no longer allowed in any Auction Brief sponsored event. Now, this is what I said about, there's two lessons here with that Baker Mayfield price for $25. I'm not here to tell you that I love Baker Mayfield. Quite the opposite. He had like a 7.9% touchdown rate, 7.2. I'm pulling this off the top of my head, but overinflated TD rate. That's going to come down. We know that. But he added a little bit of rushing last year. And I calculated that even if you took his touchdown rate from last year and you imputed a 4.9 or 5% touchdown rate, which is about his career average, he would have still thrown for 30 touchdowns. If you're going to tell me that a guy's going to give me 250 rushing yards, 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, and 30 passing scores, sign me up. Sign me up. And especially in a super flex format for that price. Okay? Now, what I mean about this whole thing is something that I went into last night, and I'm going to say it again tonight. The magnification effect. I can't stop talking about this. This is something that happens in every auction room. And I said it last night because I want you all to think about how regular snake drafts go. That if a guy slips past his ADP, everyone in the room knows it. Not only do they know it because they're staring at it in front of them, because the draft pool is sorted by ADP, so everyone sees that player at the top. but everyone knows that this guy slipped past his ADP. The slip isn't going to go very far, right? It's not going to go like a 4th round guy is going to drop to the 8th round unless there's something weird going on. But the magnification effect in auctions is completely different. It's completely different. So the magnification effect says that people's opinions on certain players are going to allow you to get a deal that you probably shouldn't be able to get. And because it's a non-linear situation, you don't know when that player is going to come up. You don't know how much money is going to be in the room. But what ends up happening is, as people are preparing for their drafts all summer long, they're thinking to themselves, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. And it ends up double and triple counting and being something that kind of gets out of control. It kind of runs downhill. And then by the time you get to drafts in late August, nobody likes the player. You need to use that in your auctions. I'm telling you, that's how you get bargains. And it's something that I've talked about recently on the show. If you were just to walk into every draft room and go after a couple of these lower ranked guys that nobody likes and just use them as the basis for your team, and then go for some other guys that you feel like have pop and power for your lineup, you're going to build these monster squads. And I sent out some Superflex par sheets this week, and I've been putting the my thoughts in there in a little write-up, like a 1-page write-up telling them what was my approach to their par sheet that I built for them. And one of the things I kept doing and kept talking about in these Superflexes was that I don't want any part of Baker Mayfield or Bo Nix for 1 quarterback leagues this year. But when it comes to Superflex, I'm all over Nix and Mayfield because they're your perfect QB1 because they're cheap. And if you decide you want to spend more, you can get 2 guys of that caliber for the price of 1 guy from the top 5 or top 6 players. So we see that in effect here with Baker Mayfield. And we see that the deal is one that is it's characteristic of that magnification effect, that everybody's down on him. But in a Superflex, do we really care that much? Because you need to have that depth and that explosive ability. I mean, do we really think Tampa Bay's defense is going to be very good? And we've got the injury to Chris Godwin, but we still got a dynamite running back group. We still got Mike Evans, and then we got this dynamite rookie coming in. And we've got a second-year player who popped as a rookie. This is still a really strong offensive environment. Now, I really want to hear that Tristan Wirfs is going to be healthy, but my point is I've stayed on this Baker Mayfield thing long enough. The point is that if you take some players that people are just generally aren't that interested in and you go after them early, you're going to get that discount because everybody's going to say, there's way too much talent left, right? Because there are way too many guys, there are way too many quarterbacks left, and nobody is hanging their hat on saying, I want Baker Mayfield because there's too many guys left, right? So get them out early, land a guy. You don't care who the guy is, you care about the price early, and then you can build around that foundation. All right, I didn't expect to do 37 minutes on Baker Mayfield, but here we are. Okay, what are we doing now in this draft room? Folks, let's get these numbers up here. Let's retweet this bad boy. People, we got some fatigue on night 2 of this thing because we're hovering around 1,000 viewers right now. How about, what do you think? Maybe some blueberry juice? What do you think? What's happening right now? Did we have any other quarterbacks go? Jaden Daniels went while I was talking, and Jaden Daniels went for $43. That's exactly right. What did I say about the slotting? The slotting is going to happen. Those running quarterbacks are going to go for a little bit more than Burrow and less for Jackson. That's exactly what happens here with Daniels. So that's a price you can't argue with. That $43 is a price you can't argue with. Now we got Trey McBride up here. And again, folks, look at what happens here with the 2 top tight ends. Bowers goes for 20. And then what does the rest of the room do? The rest of the room subconsciously says, that's our market, right? That's our market. And McBride goes for 21. This isn't rocket science sometimes, guys. This is not high-level stuff, but it's stuff that you have to pay attention to. And once you start paying attention to this kind of thing, you're going to realize that your brain's just processing it as you're going. You don't have to be some sort of high-level auction guy to just start thinking about this stuff. And once you do, all this stuff's going to pop off the page, and you're going to see it all happening. Okay, so fun nomination here. I think this is Chad who nominated Kyler Murray. This is a fun nomination. I love this because he's down on the tier sheet a little bit, right? He's not something that everybody is really after. But if everybody wants two strong starting quarterbacks, Murray's going to have some value. So it's going to be interesting to see what he goes for. Yeah, I was about to throw a fit if somebody let him go for $18. I'm not supposed to be influencing the auction. I'm going to shut my mouth. But that $18 is silly. All right, we're up to 20. That feels a little bit better. I'm interested to see how this is going to go because there's a lot of guys with money left and there's still a lot of quarterbacks left. You know what? God, I love that. I love that, man. I love that. Folks, these quarterbacks, we're in a 12-team league, right? Let's do some quick math. If you want to leave the room with 3 quarterbacks and there's only 32 starting quarterbacks, there's musical chairs here. 4 teams aren't going to get 3 starters, right? 4 teams are going to walk out of the room with 2 starters and a backup. Okay? So, Ed, JJ, what is up, my brother? JJ Wenner, got a shout out, one of my favorite dudes in the whole business. The guy just walks around supporting people. I don't know how you get to be like that. I wish I could be a little bit more like JJ. He just walks around supporting people every day of his life. Supports a bunch of 8th graders all year long. And then he just retweets every single thing I put out there. So just been a huge supporter all along. JJ, you're the man. He also helped me with my overlay and my background here for the stream. And of course, he knew right up my alley. He threw me a surfing background. Why wouldn't you, right? So Ed, he's poking fun at me because I can't stand Kyler Murray. But folks, $20 on Kyler Murray. I don't know that in a Superflex draft we should be letting Kyler Murray go for $20. I'm a little bit frustrated with my veterans right now. A little bit, just a little bit. I like this Lad McConkey price because it's interesting. Last night he went for $31. Tonight he goes for $29. That's an interesting little comparison there because only $2 difference in the Superflex. I don't know that I love that. I'm going to see McConkey go for a few dollars less. And Njoku goes for $7. In a vacuum, I don't mind the Njoku price, but this is something that we talk about all the time is we're not in a vacuum, are we? We're in a draft room. We have to pay attention to the environment. And I think that if Njoku gets called out later, he's going cheaper. That's just my thought. So, all right. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. At the same time, I'm trying to keep up with the draft. Yeah, Brian says Baker's nice, though. I agree, man. I agree on that price. I think that any time in a Superflex, you can get a guy for $25 or less. That's a starting quarterback who has ostensibly the job locked up and doesn't have to worry about a backup. So we're talking about Mayfield, Kyler Murray. These guys don't have to worry about looking over their shoulder, right? They're never going to get benched. Now, I suppose that's theoretically possible for Murray because he sucks. But no, I mean, my point is, look, these guys aren't looking over their shoulder. I don't think we should be letting guys of that caliber go for $20 or $25. I just don't. I'm not sure that that's. We have so many people that need quarterbacks in the room, but I understand why. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say that's awful. I'm just here to say that I think that I want to make somebody pay a little bit more. And if I end up with Murray for 21 because I'm trying to make you pay a little bit more, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with sticking him in my QB2 and just being fine with it. Like Kyler Murray is just like Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield. I don't want any part of Kyler Murray as my only starter in a 1 QB league. But in a Superflex, he's fantastic. He's exactly what I want because there's just enough scarcity there that Kyler Murray's value is much higher. So, all right. Numbers are jumping up there a little bit. This is what I like to see. We're 40 minutes deep in this Superflex auction on night 2 of Drew Davenport's Salary Cap Summit, sponsored by the Auction Brief. I'm over here drinking something that's really good for me. Oh, yeah. Is anybody jealous of this blueberry slushie? All right, so we got Nico Collins on the clock. We just had Derrick Henry and Travion Henderson go. So once again, applaud these guys in the room for not hammering away at quarterback nonstop. Derrick Henry goes for 32. That's a fun little discount. Nico Collins goes for 45. So what I'm noticing here, and Brian Thomas went for 33 earlier. Boy, that's a deal. Mo got a deal on Brian Thomas at 33. Travion Henderson at 21. That's about what Henderson went for last night. Henry's a noticeable discount from last night in the 1 QB, and Nico Collins is a nice little discount from last night. So one thing that I'm learning in these auctions and in my drafts that I've done recently is Nico Collins is not the value that I thought he was going to be. Every year I go into these auctions and I think there's these 8 or 10 guys that I think are going to be relevant in auctions because the price is going to be a little bit lower. And then that just doesn't happen. It doesn't materialize on some of these guys. Nico Collins is one of those guys. People are super hyped about Nico Collins. I mean, the guy's never played 16 games, but you can't get that discount. Where's my discount? You hear me whine about that all the time. Where is my discount? Because I think Nico should have a little bit of a discount. And I love the player. The price is totally fine for the production when he's on the field, but I'm not sure the risk is baked into that price. So, all right, you can see what's happening here with most of the top wide receivers. We see a little bit of a weird situation developing with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. I think we might be seeing things start to turn a little bit in the draft. There's money out of the room now. Things are turning a little bit. So we're going to see some different prices here because things have started to, oh, interesting. Okay, things have started to change a little bit. The money, people are getting a little bit more tight. Jalen Hurts is up now. This is fun. This is a fun one. I want to see if he slots in where he should or if somebody's going to get a deal. So he's currently at $31. We've got 5 franchises without a quarterback so far. The bidding's at $33. I would expect this to slot in above Burrow, but you just never know. You never know because, again, the room is treating this very intelligently. Yeah, Neighbors for 35. Bowski, I agree. We're looking at the beginning of an inflection point here. The draft is shifting a little bit because we had Thomas for 33, Neighbors for 35. I know Nico went in the middle there at 45, but we also had Derrick Henry at 32 right in there. So we're starting to see the prices drop a little bit on the top talent. I think now is when you want to start to be jumping in there on this top talent. I don't know. There's a ton of first round or second round talent left, but there's a few guys, and there's one of them. There's AJ Brown coming in. He's at an opening bid of $29. I love these opening bids. These guys are really putting the pressure on each other, and I love that. You don't want to let people. This is one of those lessons that I have to constantly talk about. I understand that sometimes you want to nominate somebody and you want to have the luxury of like thinking about it and getting comfortable with it and bidding 10, 11, 12, 13. I get all that. But you don't want to let the other people in the room be comfortable, do you? You don't want to let these other people be able to sit there and acclimate to the idea of paying more money for certain players. You want to force them to think of the decision quickly and have to process everything super quick because you're prepared, right? That advantage is on you. Like you have that when you go into your home leagues, like this draft room right here is a tough draft room. So that's not necessarily going to be something that's going to give you a massive advantage. Although I think it does give you an advantage if you nominate somebody at a higher price than they would normally be nominated for. So nominating AJ Brown for $29, I love the idea because everyone then quickly has to adjust. Okay, Brown, what would I pay? Should he go for this or that? They have to adjust on the fly when you already know what you're doing. So I love the nomination. But the thing that you got to keep in mind is that when you're in your home league drafts or in your typical drafts, the other players in the room are going to feel unbalanced by some of these moves that these guys are making. That's not necessarily having the same effect here. The guys in this room are not going to be as thrown off by some of these moves, but I still think it's something you got to do because it still forces people around you to have to react to you. If they're the ones reacting to you, then you're not the one who's going to be under the pressure and making the mistakes. You always want them reacting to you, not the other way around. All right, so we got T. Higgins now. This is a fun little number that I want to see. I want to see this number come in because he's a guy that a lot of people are down on, but he's also a guy that everyone recognizes his upside. I don't think people are going to, I was a little surprised that it even went that high, but I think 24 is right in there. It's a good solid $4 to $5 discount from last night. So that's what we're going to see in this format. We're going to see The top couple of tiers, 2-3 tiers, the guys are going to just have a small discount. After that, some things are going to start to fall off a cliff. But I want you to take a look at what's going on in this room right now. This is really important. Look at all the numbers in this room. We've been going a long time already. We've been going 45 minutes. And what pick are we on? Let me make sure. I want to expand this here. We are already through. We're into the fourth round, okay? So we're already through 38 nominations. That's a lot of players. We're about to be 40 players deep. And what's happened is a lot of people have landed players, but notice how much money is still left because of these pretty savvy drafters. They're not blowing all their money and going crazy with high prices. They know what's going on. There's a lot of money left in this room, right? Now, I know a lot of players still need to be landed. We got 4 guys without a starting quarterback, but there's a lot of money left in this room. And that's because these guys are not going to go crazy and blow their cap. So we just had Ashton Genty go for 36. And what did I tell you? We hit an inflection point about 6 picks ago, something like 6 nominations-ish. Remember, when you're looking for inflection points, you're not going to just nail it every time. And you're also, it's not necessarily like a specific moment, like, oops, it's now turned and now everything's different. That's not necessarily how it goes. Ryan's in the chat saying, I spent on Nico because I got deals on Baker and Henry. Hey, I'm with you. I totally get it. I totally get it. And I don't mind that play at all. Don't forget, we also had Jefferson go for $41. So, yeah, we hit an inflection point maybe half a round ago, and now the prices are coming down. And what do you do with that? Because in most draft rooms, when you're in a home league or something like that, nobody's seeing that. I'm telling you guys, you're in this thing, you're listening to this live feed, and you're listening to all of this theory, and you've got this stuff figured out, right? You know all this stuff because you've heard me say it over and over and over for 4 years, whatever. You've heard me say it for 2 hours last night, 2 hours tonight. People are not going to be that prepared in your room. So if you noticed that this inflection point hit a little while ago because the prices are starting to drop, the money in the room is starting to come out slowly but surely, the top players are slowly but surely coming off the board, you realize this has switched and you need to get in there and get one of these deals for one of these last remaining impact players. Now, there are a ton of players left to still go. So I'm not saying there's like 10 impact players left. What I'm saying is there are still some pretty high level ranked players, and you can get some deals on them now because people are starting to marshal their resources. Why? Because we got 4 guys who don't have a quarterback yet. We got 12 teams who are looking for their backups or their third quarterback. We still have a lot of money still to slide to the quarterback position. And we got a ton of guys who need to fill their wide receiver spots. Like, we are super early and the deals are starting to come. And that's because there's only a finite amount of resources, right? So you just have to follow, let's see, Justin Fields, 28, Calvin Ridley, 17. I'm a little surprised at the Ridley price in the of it going that high, but I understand why. Let me get a quick slug of water here. The Fields price is pretty fun because you're taking a bet on him just being a force on the ground. And one of the things I said, it's a conversation that needs to be had about Justin Fields, because what I've always said is that he has a pretty long leash from the coaching staff because they really want this situation to work, but he's only got Tyrod Taylor behind him. So you think that Fields is going to keep the job, but I think there's a non-zero chance that at some point Fields is bad enough that Tyrod Taylor can play, because the Jets coaching staff, look, they've got no allegiance to any particular player that's going to get them fired, right? So if they're trying to win football games, we could see Tyrod Taylor. So I think it's a non-zero chance that that happens. Do I think it's a very high chance? Nah, I don't really think it's very high. However, I do think it's a non-zero chance. So if I'm going for Fields in a Superflex, I love that. But I'd like to have another player of equal caliber at least to pair with him. And that's what I'm talking about, that tier of Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield and those kind of guys. I want another player that's stable to go along with Fields. And then I want to make sure just to pay another couple of extra bucks on my QB3 to make sure that I'm covered in the eventuality that Fields is so bad that they can't play him past week 6 or 8 or whatever the case may be. All right, we missed George Kittle for 16 bucks. That slots right in there behind Bowers and McBride. That's nothing surprising there. Like I said, Genty at 36. We're really rolling in some of these nice players. Tetaroa. Okay. All right. Well, I did not see that coming. Jonathan Taylor goes for 27. Tetaroa McMillan goes for 26. I'm going to come out and say it. I think that price for Tetaroa is too high in a Superflex. I just don't. When you're talking about, I mean, hey, the AJ Brown price for 31 bucks is beautiful, but turning around and spending $5 less for Tet, I think that's a bit much. However, I'm captain of the McMillan bandwagon right now. I'm driving this bus, so I like the guy, but I would my play in my mind is to wait on him and get him later in the draft because I really don't think in a Superflex he should command more than 18, 20 bucks. I'm really not hoping to pay that 26 for him. Sorry to Team 12 there, not trying to hammer on you. I love the player. I don't love the price. All right, what's going on now? We got Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's up for 23 bucks right now. Penny's about to land the deal. Nope. Somebody dropped in at the last moment. What else we got here? So we've still got 3 teams without a starting quarterback and a super flex. Those teams have some money, though. They got money to play. And what did Smith and Jigba end up going for? So this is kind of my point on McMillan. Not that I don't think he can outproduce JSN, because I think he can. But going for $2 more than JSN, I don't love it. So I'm not going to try to hammer on Team 12. I know him. He's a good drafter. All right. Jameson, what's up, dude? I don't think I saw you in the chat. Maybe I did and I forgot. Mass Dog should be able to pick off some players here shortly if they play their cards right. Yeah, totally agree. He's got some money. He needs players. I love his start with Achane and Higgins, but he needs players now. He's got the money to do it, and he can certainly accomplish that because there is a lot of nice players left. All right, we've got Ryan has decided to go off the board, and I'm getting a DM that maybe Team 12 wasn't as excited about Tet, and he might have got caught slipping. Isaiah Likely, interesting nomination from Ryan. He wanted to make sure that he got Likely for $2, or I'm guessing Ryan wasn't going to 3. So he nominates Likely for 2 and ends up landing him. That's an interesting nom this early. All right, what do we got? Garrett Wilson right now on the board. This board is shaping up very interesting because there's still a ton of wide receivers out there. We still got guys who need quarterbacks, and we're seeing the depression in prices. But this is a solid room that's not going to just churn the chum in the water. They're not just going to see players and go crazy for him because it's a good player. They're going to marshal their resources. Look at the number of players that still have greater than 50 max bid, greater than 70 max bid, greater than 100 max bid. Oh, no, we only have one of those anymore. But look, this is a group that is really trying not to blow their money. We've got Garrett Wilson go for 25. I like that. I don't love it. I like it. Okay, so anybody want to talk about, first of all, drop in the chat what you're thinking so far about which team you like for what work they've done to this point. We're how deep into this thing? We've got to be right about 4 rounds deep. Yep, we're at pick 47. We're almost at the end of the 4th round of nominations. How's everybody feeling right now about the best teams build right now? So we've got 1 vote for Junior 141. That's Team 1. Mass Dog. We've got a nomination for him because, but he's out. Yeah, he can't. He's got to get some players. Brandon says, I like the idea of nominating or getting a cheap QB and or tight end early for peace of mind. I like it too. One of the things that I said, I wrote a little piece for Football Guys this week about tight ends and my approach to tight ends. I really believe that, yeah, thanks, Matt. I think Ryan's having a good draft too. So everybody drop in the comments, who do you think is doing the best work so far? We have a long way to go, but who's doing the best work to this point? Okay. Now, Bo Nix, now we've only got 2 teams without a quarterback so far. Bo Nix goes for 27. Can I just tell you, folks, I'm pretty proud of that call. I don't love Bo Nix. I don't love Baker Mayfield. But what I've been saying is, if you can handle these 2 guys in a super flex, if you had taken Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield and put them together as your top 2 quarterbacks, you only spent $52 on your top 2 quarterbacks. Then you could slide in for a QB3 like Kyler Murray or Justin Fields, and then you've got your 3 quarterbacks and you've only spent like $70. That is where I'm at. That's what I really want to be doing in this type of thing. Okay, so I've got another couple votes for Junior. Let's look at team 1. He's got Jalen Hurts for 43, McCaffrey for 37, St. Brown for 38, and McBride for 21. Sorry about the buzzing here, guys. Yeah, so I like Junior's build so far. He's super balanced. He's got a really strong player at every position. So I agree with that. Junior's got it going on. Brian says he likes what Chad's doing so far. Chad, how much did you pay him to say that? Ryan's crushing it. Yeah. So far, like the players that people are loving right now, team 1, team 5, and team 9. Okay, where are we at now? We're at James Conner. I think, folks, that we're getting close to another inflection point. We had one probably middle of the 3rd, something like that, end of the 3rd. And now we're getting into the 5th round. I feel another inflection point coming on because we're now finally getting to where most players are below $70 max bid. We've only got one team that has a considerable amount of cap left, and that's team 2 with $132 max bid. But he's got to fill most of his team. So we're in that spot. If I'm getting some crackling on the mic, please let me know. I'll adjust my mic cords here. But we're getting to that point where there are most of the teams below $70. And hey, Jay, what's up, man? Good to see you. Nasty's doing well. Yeah, Nasty, Mahomes, Gentine, Puka. Yeah. I'm going to tell you that I think one of my favorite teams is probably Team 7 because I think Nasty's got some really nice middle-of-the-road prices, but he's got some top-level talent. So sorry about my dog up there. He sounds like an elephant running around upstairs. But Nasty's doing a nice job. I really like what he's doing. But Mike is good. Thanks, Jameson. So I think we're coming on another inflection point here. I'm not sure if we're dead on it yet, but this is the kind of conversation that I want you to have with yourself. Caleb Williams for $21 feels fun, man. That feels fun. Josh Jacobs for 26. That feels fun. I have a problem with loving these prices so much that I blow off some of the top talent sometimes because I'm telling you, I'm happy. If I have Josh Jacobs as my number 1 and James Conner as my number 2, and I spent $42, and then I take Caleb Williams as my number 3 or as my QB2 and he's $21, like I like this kind of thing. And this is how I build my teams. Now, I have had to push myself harder in recent years to not blow off some of the top level players because there are deals like this coming and you just have to trust that the deals are coming and trust your preparation. So I have that problem. It's a bit of a problem for me. So Jay says he likes team 12. Yeah, TG says he doesn't want to use a magnifying glass. TG, I don't know what to tell you, bro. I posted a link to yesterday's draft. I'm sorry if it's difficult for you guys to see here. Let's see who just went. I got to pull up the results here. What do we do? Purdy went for 23. So I like Brock Purdy. But if you're asking me in a super flex, would I rather have Purdy or Caleb? I would probably rather have Caleb just because I think there's some rushing upside and there's some untapped upside that we don't necessarily know whether or not, it's there. But I love Purdy as a strong number two. And the same thing with Caleb. I love him as a strong number two or a QB3, but you can make him a QB1 if you're going to go super flat with your quarterbacks. I think it's okay to go super flat. I want you guys to all take a look at the quarterback values here. I believe this is an important lesson for everybody because some of these quarterbacks here below $30, you really have to dig in to the values that I believe that we're seeing some values that maybe we shouldn't see at the quarterback position. Now, I'm not saying these are like amazing values, but they're strong enough that I feel like you don't need to go crazy and spend $40 on your top guys unless that's something that you have planned for. I'm here to tell you, I don't believe those prices on the top quarterbacks are terrible prices. They're fine. That's not how I build in a super flex, but you can do it. It just makes it a little bit harder. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. The prices on Neighbors and Brian Thomas are super fun. Now, what I think that is fun to do in a super flex is to go after those kinds of deals and then just blow off quarterback a little bit more. I know it's important, but I'm like, if we're looking back, this is hindsight stuff. But Dak Prescott for 31 feels high when we've got Knicks for 27, Mayfield for 25, Fields for 28. When we got some of these prices, Purdy for 20, whatever the case may be, that's hindsight stuff. You can't say to me like, hey, that's a bad price on Dak, because at the time the price was completely fine. But now when we're seeing these lower prices, if I had Prescott on my team, I'd be a little bit annoyed because the deals are coming in. And like I said, I think we're hitting that inflection point where there's enough money out of the room that we're going to start to see some real nice deals. All right, so Brees Hall goes for 16. Yeah. So we hit that inflection point. So I think we were about, sorry for the creaky chair, I think we were about midway through the third round when we saw an inflection point. And now that we're into the fifth round, we just saw another inflection point. So that last one really only lasted about 15 nominations. And now we're into another phase of the draft. And that phase of the draft is where the money's starting to get scarce and people are going to be a little more interested in who they're interested in or attacking scarcity. One of the two things is happening now as we get into, I know this doesn't feel like the middle stages of the draft, but we're into the middle stages, okay? We're into what I would call the early middle stages. There is a ton of talent on the board. And how you manage these early stages, early middle stages is going to be really impactful for your overall roster strength. Because we're at the point now where people are like, hey, I've got $40, $50 max. I don't want to spend $38 on somebody. So you're naturally going to see a depression in prices on players that maybe would have gone for more earlier in the draft, right? So we've hit another inflection point here in the fifth round. We're into like the middle of the fifth here. So it lasted maybe 2 rounds, maybe a little bit less, where we had the guys in the 30s, and this was more elite talent. But now we're dipping down into the tiers. We just saw Trevor Lawrence go for 22, Tyreek Hill for 19, Brees Hall for 16. So as you can see, we're dropping down, and the prices are coming down in a corresponding fashion. So we may see some weird spikes on some players in scarcity territory here at the quarterback position. But for the most part, if you notice, everybody, look at these rosters and how they're set up. This is a super balanced group, right? We've got almost everybody with a quarterback. Everybody has a running back. Everybody has a wide receiver. These guys do not mess around. I just want to say great job to these drafters so far. They're not messing around. They are balanced, okay? They are balanced. That means we're going to have a lot of fun in the last half of this draft, the last 2/3 of the draft. But do you see why I say that we're in the early middle part? Even though we're in the fifth round and that feels early, that's only a third of the way through the draft. For auction purposes, we're getting into that meat of the draft where it's going to make or break your roster. So, yeah, Herbert for 18 is a nice deal. I told you, we were coming to an inflection point. There's not enough money left. And you have to remember, it's not just about the total money. It's about what are people willing to spend at this point, because there's a lot of other good players out there. So if there's a lot of good players that are not quarterbacks, Some of these people with quarterbacks, they're not going to want to spend up for a guy like Herbert for $18. That's not a huge spend, but for somebody sitting there with a $50 max bid, they don't want to bid $19 on Herbert. So you end up getting that kind of a deal. This is what I talk about. I want to highlight this right now because I think it's super important. I talk about inflection points all the time and taking advantage of inflection points. What do I mean by that? What I mean is if you can predict when that's going to happen, or you saw that it already happened, or that you're in the middle of the thing shifting, you profit on that by your nomination or by taking advantage of a price that wouldn't have been available to you 20 picks ago. That's how you profit on inflection points. I feel like I spend so much time on my show and in conversations like this where I have a theoretical idea about what's happening. Like, hey, here's my theory that I want you to hear about how this is going to happen. Here's my theory about what happens in this room. And let me be honest, these mostly are not theories. They're practical experiences. They're things that I know from hundreds and hundreds of hours of auction drafting. But I present it to you as game theory, as things that you can think about. And it all becomes very ethereal, a very like, amorphous, like, oh, yes, there's an inflection point, and it's going to be, it's going to change the room, everybody. Does everyone see how the room changed? You guys like when I talk like this? It's getting weird in here. I swear there's no vodka in here. It's just sugar, bro. Next year, vodka. But I love seeing this stuff happen in real time. That is what it's all about. Man, it fires me up. Fires me up. Because look, I talk about this all the time. I'm like, how do we profit from the inflection points? This is it. This is it. We're watching it in real time. You profit from the inflection points by noticing when they're happening, or noticing when you're in the middle of them, noticing that it's about to happen. And hey, dual screens. I'm sorry. I thought you guys could see it. Can't you see the bidding happening? You can see the player in the bottom left. And you can see the bidding happening. It's all happening on the screen, right? Winner. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by dual screens. I think you guys can see that pretty well, no? But anyway, JJ, great idea. Every time there's an inflection point, Drew does a shot. I'm in. Let's do it. Next year. Okay. But no, yeah, what's weird, guys, is I can't scroll down when I'm sharing. It won't let me scroll down. It's super weird. I try to scroll down and it doesn't let me. Isn't that weird? So I think when I'm sharing, it does something to the screen, like it doesn't let me scroll down. Ah! Oh my God. I'm terrible. I'm garbage. It only took me 3.5 hours, folks. Please drop your favorite boomer jokes in the. I'm not drunk. I'm not high. 3.5 hours. But the slider bar was over there. Whatever. Drop your favorite boomer jokes in there. I finally got the more of the screen. Oh my God. I'm laughing so hard. But I saw everybody saw that, right? Like, I'm not crazy. There's a slider bar right here, and that thing wouldn't work. But then there's this like second slider bar. Why are there two slider bars? Okay, boomer, drop your boomer jokes. I'm going to hear so much shit from Chad. Whoa, excuse me. I'm going to hear so much stuff from Chad about that. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Okay, let's get back to the point. Folks, I couldn't be more pumped up. This is what I'm talking about with inflection points. When you sit there and you listen to me on the auction brief and you're like, yeah, here's another thing about how I can profit from inflection points without an example. This is the example. This is what you're seeing right now. You know that when it's happening, I got to get in there. I got to get a deal. I got to get in there. And if you're not in there quickly enough, you're going to watch it pass. And then the draft has shifted already and you didn't take advantage of it, because then everybody else is like, oh yeah, boy, price has dropped. I'm going to get in there. But if you got in there first, you got the deal for Herbert for 18. You got the Breece Hall for 16. Okay. So yeah, Blake, y'all should be killing me in the comments. You guys are too nice. You should be killing me in the comments for not knowing that 3.5 hours into this thing. But there we are. I'm going to kind of scroll back and forth a little bit so that you guys can kind of see the max bids, but then also see below, because we never did talk about Josh Allen, who went for 45. But what did I say about the slotting earlier? Folks, this is no joke. And there's something that I want to talk about here. It's a bit insidious. Okay. Do we all know what the word is? Insidious. My wife makes fun of me all the time. Like, you didn't have to use that word, did you? You could have just said it was sneaky. But no, it's insidious. The thing that happens when Jay press control, view, zoom out. What? How do I do that, man? Control, view, zoom out. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Control. Nah, I don't know what's happening. All right, I'm sorry. This is not interesting. But one of the things about this slotting that I keep talking about is, guys, I don't have control minus. Let's go more. Ooh, that's exciting. I just didn't think you guys could be able to read that. Like, I was having trouble because I'm sharing my screen, and I was a little bit concerned. Like, can you guys even read that? I don't know if you can read that. That's kind of hard, but that's up to you guys. If you can read that, I'll leave it like that. Absolutely. I appreciate all that. So, okay. So no, I don't, so what I talk about when I talk about the slotting is that Josh Allen, he went right in there where I thought he would, between Burrow and Jackson. And this is kind of the kind of stuff where I understand it's hard to sit there and listen to me every week and be like, is that really how it goes? But it's an insidious thing that I do to myself. It's sort of this weird, like I'm gaslighting myself. Like, I talk about this stuff every week, and then I'm like, I hope everyone believes me. But I'm not in here making stuff up. I'm telling you through hundreds of hours and 25 years of auction drafting that this stuff happens. And when we saw Burrow go for 42 and Jackson go for 50, there was just no chance that Josh Allen was going to go for above 50 or below 42. Like, he was just going to slot in there. That's how it works. When people see the they see these things get set, they see the markets get set. The only time that you bust out of that and have a weird price is when it's the last player and it's sort of scarce and there's a couple guys with a bunch of money going at it. So that's not going to happen very often. With these players, you're going to see the slotting. You're going to know that stuff's coming. And it's real important for you to notice that. So I pointed it out to you. But if you're in a room by yourself, are you noticing that? And I'm not here, like, that sounds like something like, I am amazing. I noticed it. Do you notice it? That's not what I mean. I want you guys to pay attention to this stuff, because it's really easy to be like focused on, this is what I'm doing. I got to do this next. I got to do this next. I know you're juggling all this kind of stuff, but don't forget to breathe, zoom out, and say, what's happening in the room in general? What are the maxes left? What are the players left that I feel like are going to come to me later in the draft? And where do I think these guys are going to slot, right? Find out where where these guys are going to slot by where they are in the general idea about what the fantasy community thinks. Because I've said this before about auctions, and I have to say it again. You cannot team 2 punting QB. Yeah, I want to address team 2 because I kind of like what he's doing. I can see some issues popping up, but I kind of like it. I want to talk about it. But we have to understand. Gosh, I'm getting really far behind, guys. Let me go back here and talk about what's happened here, because Bryce Young went for 14, CJ Stroud went for 15, Marvin Harrison went for 18, and then Travis Kelce just went for 6. Let me point out here that I mentioned earlier in the draft that David Njoku for 7 was going to look like a price that may be a little inflated when we get later in the draft. There's going to be some tight ends that go dirt cheap later in this draft. I'm just here to tell you that Kelce price for $6. We may see guys that are $2-3 that should be $6, $7, $8. And I think that's going to happen later in this draft. But let me address what somebody said about QB2, about team 2 and his quarterback strategy. Folks, I'm 100% fine with this strategy. One thing I have to warn you about. Excuse me, I got blueberry slushy coming up. Herbert, Young, Stroud. I'm totally fine with this idea, but what you have to do is pair those three guys with top level talent. To be fair to Team 2, I called him in from the bullpen about 3 hours ago. Okay. So he hasn't been sitting there working on his par sheet for a week, but I think he's doing a good job here. The values are really nice, but now you got to bring it home. You got to spend that $88 max bid on landing some players that are going to give you some depth here. The one thing that I have a criticism about for these three guys is I'd rather just take a Stroud or a Young at the back with the Herbert and then pull out of one of those spots and just spend a little bit more money to get into the 20s, to get a Baker, to get a Bo Nix, to get a Fields, somebody like that that has that pop. Because I'm a little bit afraid of three pocket passers without a lot of rushing upside. Bryce Young showed us a little bit at the end of last year, but I'm a little bit worried about three pocket guys. And the biggest problem that I have, and I'm going to tell you why I have a problem with the build from Team 2, and it has nothing to do with the prices because the prices are completely reasonable. What I have the problem with is I don't know who to start every week. I've done that build many times, and I don't know who to start. So I go into the week and I'm like, oh, I'm going to start these two, and you invariably are going to miss on one of them. So you have to pick a couple guys that are going to be your guys and just go with them. And that's hard to do. It's hard to sit there and say, oh, well, this guy's got a great matchup. I want to play that. And then, he gets his team down to the 1 yard line 4 times and it's 4 rushing touchdowns. That doesn't mean the quarterback had a bad week, but you had bad luck. So a lot of times, if you're switching those quarterbacks around and around and around, you're playing that bingo and you're going to miss. It's very possible to have these three quarterbacks and have one of them be QB9, one of them be QB10, and one of them be QB12. And because you are playing rotating quarterbacks, a QB9, 10, 12, you should average like having a QB10 in your lineup. You're going to average having like QB13 in your lineup because you're going to miss on the start-sit decisions. So that's my only criticism of Team 2. It's not that I don't love the deals because I do, but I want to get some top-end players to go with those guys, and I want to make my decisions easier. So I want to just have those guys at the back of my roster, but then I want to have one guy that I know he's in my lineup every week, and then I can rotate the two guys at the back. Okay, that was a long FWM diatribe there. Let's see what we've got here. I want to zoom out. I tell you guys zoom out all the time and to look at what's going on. There are, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 teams with only one quarterback right now. 7 teams. That's a lot. That means we're going to see some quarterbacks go for a little bit too much money. And the one thing that I think that Team 2 did really well was they got in and got their deals before the scarcity hit to make some of these lower end QBs go for too much money. So some of these guys are going to go for too much that really probably aren't that much more valuable than Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but they're going to go for more because people need quarterbacks, man. There's a lot of people that need quarterbacks still, and the max bids in the room are not very high. Okay. So look at what we've got going on here with max bids. I'm going to read out the max bids here. 15, 68, 50, 38, 40, 38, 11, 33, 60, 44, 29, 27. So look at what's going on here. We've only got a few people with a max bid over $50, and we are nearing the end of round 6. So we're going to go 10 rounds, folks, with almost nobody over $50. That's what happens in a Superflex room because you're still going to pay a lot of money for the top guys. You're going to get a little discount, but then you're throwing the money at the quarterback position. And what did I say happens later in one of these drafts? The prices fall off a cliff. They're going to fall off a cliff. We're going to see some weird deals later, right? They're coming. I haven't seen the inflection point yet, but it's coming. Tucker Kraft for $7. I love Tucker Kraft. I don't love $7 in this format. James Cook for 21. Sorry, Ed. Love you, buddy. James Cook for 21. Again, I like the price. I don't love the price. I think that right now we're seeing a little bit of inflation in prices because of everyone is seeing the cliff coming. Everyone's seeing the cliff coming. So I think we're about to have an inflection point. We're not there yet. We're kind of still where we were a couple rounds ago. This inflection point's lasting longer than normal. Oh, oh, what's everyone see here? Hey, all of you hardcore auction briefers, what did we just see here? Okay. What did we just see? We just saw a $13 Alvin Kamara. Oh, man. I got to say, Chad did a good job. Damn it. Chad, you're garbage. Just kidding. Chad, great deal on Kamara. $13. What just happened? Again, the inflection points. I want to talk about this in real time because Kamara for $13, it should be like a little ding, 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 like what's happening? Okay. There's still some really good players left, right? But $13 for Kamara tells me something interesting. It tells me that people are starting to get into. Can anybody put in the chat, what is the thing? I'll give you $1 billion as soon as I have $1 billion. I'll get that right over to you. Who knows what I'm going to say? What is the territory we're in or we're heading into right now with low cap dollars? Does anyone know what it's called? Drop it in the chat and tell me. I'm going to say it here in just a second. What's everyone think it's called? It's a catchy little thing. Begins with a G. Something I talk about all the time when people are focused on who they want and less focused on value and just who they want to finish. Yes, we got it. We got two people who got it right in a row. Bowski and Matt Cruz. Matt, how do you say your last name? Cruz? I forget. Anyway, Matt and Bowski, they nailed it. It's get your guy mode. We're in to get your guy mode, I think. Or if we're not yet, we're about to be, okay? Because we know that there are still players left. However, we're seeing some weird deals. So I don't think we've quite hit the inflection point yet because we got DJ Moore for 16. Mike Evans went for 16. But we're right in that zone where people are caring less about specific players less about specific values and more about players that they're chasing. They're thinking to themselves, hey, I want this guy. I want this guy. And that's where they're marshaling their resources for. They're kind of holding their resources. So you're going to see some weird deals. That's where the Kamara deal comes in. That $13 for Kamara. Chad, I wish I could say on the air what I think about that deal, but it's amazing. That's the kind of thing that's about to happen. And that's because there's still a lot of good players left on the board. And there's a combination. There's really three things working on that price. There's a lot of players left on the board that people still like. They're going after these players that they want. That's the get your guy mode. And then on top of that, we're starting to get just really low max bids here. We're starting to get in that territory where people can't do anything. David Montgomery for $10. Okay, we might have hit it. We had a couple guys go for 16, but now we're into these crazy weird deals at running back. RB2s that should be going for more money are going way too cheap because there's no money left in the room. The money's just like if people don't want a player, they're not going to bid. They're not going to risk getting stuck with a $14 player that they don't want. So they're not going to bid. So Montgomery for $10, love it. Evans and Moore for 16. This is what I'm talking about. Like if you have to chase some of these higher level quarterbacks, it's okay. These guys are coming later. I'm not here to tell you I love Evans and Moore this year, but $16 a piece. Like if I spend 35 on my top wide receiver or my even 40 or 45, and then I come back behind it and I've got Evans for 16, Moore for 16, Montgomery for 10, you've only spent $42 on three guys that are going to start for you. So this is the kind of thing. I think we've hit that point where things are starting to shift now. We're getting near the end of the 7th round. $17 for RJ Harvey's a little surprising. So we're not quite there yet. Things are about to move, but this is what I'm talking about. If you can watch that stuff and you can say to yourself, okay, this is about to happen, you're not always going to be right because what I've said before is you got to test your theory. You got to say, I think things are shifting and then pay attention. Are they moving or was I wrong? Was there a fake out here, an inflection point that didn't actually happen that I thought was coming? All right, Hawkinson went for 4. Bingo. Folks, this is what I'm talking about with the tight ends. I'm not saying that that Njoku or Kraft can't be better because they totally can. But if I would make the bet that between Kraft, Hawkinson, and Njoku, they're all like a coin flip against each other, right? Like if you told me before the season started, you can have these three guys. Two of them are 7 and one of them's 4. They all have an equal chance of finishing higher than the other one. You take the one for 4, right? It's pretty simple. This is what I mean by the later round tight end values. And that's what happens in a super flex. We get a cliff that happens at tight end, RB2 and 3, wide receiver 3 and 4, and that's coming. And I don't know when it's coming exactly, but I think we've been on the cusp of it here for the last 10 picks or so. I think the bottom's about to fall out. But one of the things I want to caution you on is something that I mentioned last night that I think needs to be mentioned again. Okay. When people have a low max bid this late in a draft, in an auction, you're going to have the tendency to say to yourself, okay, well, that guy's, he's done. He can't pay for this player. He can't do this. He can't do that. What does everyone think I'm going to say next? You know me pretty well. Mike Caro's law of loose wiring. It says that in certain situations, people are going to do things that are against their interest. They're going to do things that aren't necessarily logical to you. That doesn't mean that they're going away from their plan. They may have a plan exactly how they're going to execute the end of this thing. But they're going to do things that are going to maybe make you a little frustrated because you think, hey, this guy's got a $29 max bid and he shouldn't be doing that, but then he does it anyway. And you think, oh, that's pretty frustrating, right? So Goff for 14, Penix for 13. Again, we're seeing that thing where there's just not enough money left in the room. So scarcity only works if there's money in the room to make the scarcity happen. And I don't mean that's a poor sentence. There's only going to be a spike in price from scarcity if there's enough room to see that spike. And right now, I'm not sure that there's enough money for the scarcity to matter. So I think that we've officially hit that inflection point. I think that going forward, we're going to see the prices bottom out a little bit here, and things are going to get a lot cheaper. There's going to be some random players that are going to spike here still because there's still a lot of talent, folks. There's a lot of talent left, but we're going to start to see some of these interesting prices because of the fact that there's not enough money left in the room. So Jameson Williams goes for $10. That's one of those prices I'm talking about. So I think we're officially there. We're going to start to see some lower prices. We will see some random spikes still because there's still a guy with 44 max bid. There's still somebody with a 50 max bid, a 36 max bid, but everyone else is below 30. There's only one other team above 30 max bid. So we're going to see a couple random spikes on some of the top guys left. But after that, you're not going to see much of anything go for more than 10, $12 the rest of this draft, okay? We have hit that inflection point. We're past the meat of the draft now. The get your guy mode is still happening, but we've hit that next inflection point where people are lower in max bid and every nomination becomes important and every bid becomes even more important. Don't forget, later in a draft, one of the pieces of currency that you can't ignore are your roster spots, okay? You can't ignore that. That is currency later in the draft. You have to guard that stuff. If you think that you don't want this certain quarterback, then don't bid $11 on him because at this point you might get him. So guard your roster spots as much as you guard your money right now. We're getting late enough in the draft that that's becoming a big point of contention. That's something you have to think about. All right, would have been the last few nominations. We've got Metcalf for $12, JMO for 10, Penix for 13, Goff for 14. You see what I'm talking about? We hit that inflection point well and truly maybe 6 picks ago, something like that. We saw it coming. It took a little bit to get there, but now we're officially there. Jordan Mason's at $9. Hey, Chad, you got a 28 max. Just throw it all on Jordan Mason. Chad, 28. Just type in 28. Chad, what are you doing? Oh, boy. Chad, you had your chance, buddy. $28 on Mason. Yes, Brian, Jordan Love is still available. There's still several quarterbacks that are available. And, boy, these max bids, it's going to make for one heck of a free-for-all here at the end of this draft. So I think right about round 10, we're going to pull down the bidding to 10 seconds. We're going to leave the nomination at 30 seconds because these guys are prepared. They're not going to sit there for the full 30 seconds. But we're going to pull down the nomination time to 10 seconds because we want to get this thing moving. So here's one of those random spikes I was talking about. Davante Adams is now going for $22. Remember, we've had a lot of talented receivers go recently for 10, 12, 14, 16 bucks. And we got Adams here for 24. This is one of those random price spikes that I'm talking about. Here's what I love about auctions. And this is something that really occurred to me the other night when I was in a mock auction the other night. I really love being near the end of the draft and not having a lot of money at this point. Well, that's weird, right? Yeah, let me explain. I think it's fun to not have so much money at this point because instead of worrying about landing Davante Adams or landing that last top guy, instead you're free to just kind of run around and pick off the values. I mentioned it before. I'm in a fantasy surfing league, and they have something called priority. It's when two guys are in the water, and one guy is allowed to take off on a wave where the other guy just has to wait. So if the guy wants the wave, he's allowed to take it. It's called priority. And the guy who doesn't have priority has to look for other waves and has to wait until he gets it back. But a lot of times the guy without priority ends up running around and catching some nice waves because he's got no pressure to wait on the perfect wave. Oftentimes the guy with priority waits on the perfect wave. And the guy who doesn't have it can pick off these nice, fun little waves that can get him a good score. That's where you're at. When you're late in an auction and you don't have all the money, you're free to run around and just like pick off deals. Like that's the whole point. Late in the draft, you don't feel the pressure. Like I've got the hammer and I've got all the money, and therefore I have to wait on Davante Adams. You don't feel that pressure. You know you're not getting Davante Adams, so you can go pick off the $10 JMO. You can go pick off the $10 Rice. You can go pick off the what was the one that just at the $12 DK Metcalf. Those are the deals that you can get when you don't have the most money. So I always tell people when I get to the point where there's about 75% of the money gone from the room, which is about where we are, I don't want to have the most money at that point. I want to be able to have enough money that I can pick off deals, but I want to be like third or fourth in money at this point. And then you can pick off some deals. You're going to slip down below and then you wait again. Okay. And then the waiting, the important thing becomes, have you saved your nomination list to know what you're going to be able to do to either punt or call out the right guy when it comes to you? Nomination strategy comes to the forefront near this point in the draft. It is absolutely huge. Yeah, Angerworm says it perfectly here. The hammer can backfire at this point, okay? It can backfire. And you just have to understand that if you're waiting for the perfect thing to happen, it's probably not going to happen. So you need to I'm convinced that the hammer is a bit of a handicap when you get to this point in the draft, because you really you have an obligation to go get the best player left on the board, right? But then if you end up in a bidding war with the other person who has money, what good did it do you? What good did that do you? I'd rather just say, okay, I'm going to ignore that guy and pick off two nice players than the top player left, unless of course it's somebody super impactful. And I would submit that Davante Adams is that kind of guy. So you feel an obligation there, right? And Adams goes for 23 when other guys went for cheaper that have the same are drafted in the same area, the same sort of value as Adams, went for much cheaper. Okay, where are we at now? We're getting one of those quarterbacks out there because now it's becoming a little interesting here that we've got. What did I just do? Okay, now it's becoming pretty interesting because we've got a couple teams that still need a second quarterback. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 4 teams that need a second quarterback. What I don't want to be doing in a Superflex draft, and I'm not here to tell you guys that these guys don't know what they're doing, okay? So please, please, please understand. I'm here to offer commentary. I don't want to get to this point and only have one quarterback. And I also don't want to get to this point and say that I'm locked into a backup that is not going to play. So I really like the strategy of making sure that I have my guys before we get here. I like what Team 3 did. He went with Bo Nix at 27. Bo Nix has a very secure job, right? And then Brock Purdy at 23. Both of those guys are really secure jobs. Am I right? Like $50 for those two guys. That's perfect in a Superflex. And then he goes and scoops up Jordan Love. for 15. I sent out a par sheet last night, and I told the guy, I would love it if you built your Superflex with like a Knicks Purdy Love kind of build. So I just got to say, Team 3, I'm in love with the strategy of the Superflex there. I'm not telling you that you can't go spend $43 on Jaden Daniels. I'm not saying that, because it's a completely workable strategy. But what I don't want to do is get to this point where my max bid says, I'm probably not going to get the quarterbacks I need to be getting here. You know, the scarcity is that there's 36 spots if everybody wants to have 3 quarterbacks, and there's only 32 starting quarterbacks. So you're going to force yourself into a bit of a rotation kind of thing. And what I mean by that is, if you're caught short without that quarterback, then you're going to have to go over go after guys like, all right, I'm going to pair Russell Wilson with Jackson Dart, or I'm going to pair Anthony Richardson with Daniel Jones. Those kind of things are going to be the plays you have to make to piece together that third quarterback. I don't like playing those games for a couple reasons. Number one, they're cheap for a reason, because ostensibly they suck. But on the other hand, they're cheap, and you have to not only spend the money on 2 guys, but you got to take up your roster spot. And that's what I'm talking about earlier. It burns a roster spot on your bench that maybe you could be using on something else. And there's going to be a lot of nice players that are going to go for $4 or $5 here in a little bit. All right, so Love went for 15, didn't he? Am I reading that wrong? Yeah, he went for 15. Love went for 15. Stroud went for 15. I mean, y'all, look, I'm a boomer. Y'all wanted me to make this smaller. Are you guys having trouble? Are you boomers too? Are you guys having trouble reading it? Okay, what do we got going on here with some of the latest values? The latest values, Quinshawn Judkins for 3, Geno Smith for 10. Bro, Scott, great job. I love picking off Geno for $10 there. Guys, I don't think Geno should go for $10. When there's people who don't have a backup quarterback, I think you got to bid 11 there. I think you got to make Scott pay $15 for a second quarterback. Handing him Geno for $10 feels like a bit of a misstep here on when we're getting scarce here at quarterback. Romo Duns goes for 9. What did I say when we were back nearing the end of the 7th or beginning of the 8th round, that we had hit that point where we weren't going to see a lot of guys go for over $10 the rest of the draft? We're there, folks. We're there. The max bids are really low. Mazdog has 48. He's going to be able to just rip it and tear it up the rest of this draft. We've got a couple guys that have 25, 20, but in general, we're going to see this thing move really quick. So here's what I'm going to do. We are nearing the end of round 8. Is that right? Yeah. So at the end of round 9, I'm going to jack down the bidding clock from 30 seconds to 10. And we're going to get this puppy moving in turbo mode, because we're about an hour and 40 minutes in, but we are actually moving pretty quick. This is a strong room that doesn't mess around, and they're putting their money out there quickly and getting the bids up there quickly. So we're moving pretty quick through this draft. Frankly, an hour and 40 minutes in, I think we're going to be done in a half hour. That's kind of crazy to say, but this thing's going to go fast. So in another about a round and a half, I'm going to pull this thing down to a 30-second nom clock and a 10-second bid clock, and this thing's going to start moving a lot faster. All right. Well, we're slowly but surely climbing in numbers. We're approaching 1,000 viewers on YouTube. I don't know how many we have on Twitter right now. Let me see what Twitter's telling me. How are things going over on Twitter? We are live. Okay. All right. So we're about 1,700 viewers. Not nearly what we hit last night. Everyone was excited about last night. That's cool. But I hope everyone's excited about tomorrow night. Don't forget, everybody, while I've got my highest listener count right now, don't forget, tomorrow night is the final night of the Salary Cap Summit at 7:30 Eastern. We've got Dave Richard. These are all auction experts, okay? That's going to be myself, Dave Richard, Jim Coventry, Scott Pianowski, and Joe Dolan. I don't know if you guys know Joe Dolan over from Fantasy Points. You should by now. He's been in the industry a long time. He really knows auction drafts. But Joe is somebody that I talk with every year for a Fantasy Points auction-only show, and it's one of my favorite conversations of the whole season because he just really knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. So Joe's going to be on there. Jim Coventry, excellent auction drafter. In fact, I met him talking about the Kings Classic auction. That's how him and I met. And then Scott Pianowski, he busted me up in that Kings Classic room over and over. We're going to talk to Scott. And then, of course, Dave Richard from CBS. Y'all know he's the auction master. I'll be doing a mock with Dave 2 o'clock on Wednesday, so that should be fun as well. But look, tomorrow night, the final night of the Salary Cap Summit, 7:30 Eastern. Tune in. We're going to go live, and we're going to put these guys on bang, bang, bang. I'm also going to have Matt, actual real-life auctioneer. He owns an auction house, and he's going to give us some of the psychological side of what happens when bidding in an auction draft room. I'm going to have Matt on for about 20, 30 minutes and listen to him talk. And then I've also got a surprise mystery guest, pretty darn big name in the industry. If you can read between the lines, I hope he's able to make it. I'm not going to put it out there publicly to pressure him because he's a great dude and he's going to do all he can to just pop in on the stream. But folks, I hope that whets your appetite. We're going to talk. How do we move forward in the industry? How do we get this thing that we love to have more attention? Because folks, it's an underserved area of fantasy football. I think it's crazy how few websites care about it. Most websites just want to check a box like, oh, here's some values. Now, will you leave me alone so I can go back to talking about ADP? We are the little orphan Annie of the fantasy community, unfortunately. But that's going to be the topic of conversation. How can we move ourselves out of that little box into something that's not so niche? That's something that everybody can get into. How can we do this? How can we make it quicker? How can we make it more appealing? This is just really important stuff. And I'm going to get these 4 giants in the industry to give me their opinions about how to move this stuff forward. But then we're going to talk about their favorite tips and tricks, their favorite strategies for how they do the stuff. How do they approach Superflex leagues? And, just pick their brains. And we're going to spend about a good 90 minutes. It ain't going to be me for 2.5 hours. It's going to be all guests. And we're going to talk nonstop auction for at least 90 minutes. And we're going to just hammer home the final night of the Salary Cap Summit. I'm stoked about how this has gone down and how much fun that we've already had these 2 nights. So Angerworm says, this is the only video I've seen like this. It's so hard to get good Superflex and auction insights. I agree, man. I agree. Like, I don't get it because I know it's niche. And I'm in a unique position. And let me just say this. Let me cop to this. I understand. These websites have to make money, right? So I get it. You're over at CBS. You're trying to figure out, like, what do I do that's going to bring people to my website? And that's not auction drafting. I get it, man. Like, I'm not banging on people for paying attention to the bottom line, but this is not my day job. Okay. My day job, as you know, is as a lawyer. So I don't have to rely on this for my money, for my income. And so I don't have to pander and say, hey, I'm only going to do auction for 10 minutes of every show, because this is what I want to be doing. And I hope that the passion that I have for this topic comes through and how excited I am. I'm an hour and 45 minutes into this thing. I'm having a freaking blast. I'm having a blast. And all I've been doing is running my fat, wet mouth for an hour and 45 minutes. Let's get caught up. Jacoby Myers, $6. Aaron Jones, $5. Tony Pollard, $10. Joe Mixon, $3. This is interesting. We still have some guys who need some quarterbacks. I want to see how that ends up. I don't think I said anything about Cam Ward for 11 or Michael Penix for 13. I really like how there are some deals in the Superflex format. You don't always have to rush in guns blazing and spend $50. This is not a slam on anyone. I'm saying that I don't love going for the top 5 at the position because I think it hamstrings me elsewhere. Having said that, it's absolutely achievable. Okay. It's achievable. And you see these prices that tell me it is. Geno Smith for 10. Do I love Geno Smith? No, but for $10, yes. Yes. So there are ways to achieve your Superflex build in different ways. I personally have settled on the fact that I like the one solid guy and then 2 guys that I can rotate. But if I can get 2 mid-tier guys, that is my favorite thing of all. 2 guys like the Baker, Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, those kind of guys, I feel like that frees me up to really hammer away at top talent at other positions. And your quarterbacks are going to keep you in the game, and your skill position players are going to win it for you. That's how I feel about Superflex. I'm not the guy who is going to just sit here and tell you that's the only way to do it. You can win in auction draft rooms any way you want. But this has been the one that I found to be most effective. Okay. Yeah. More fun, more difficult, wide variety of outcomes. Yeah. It's way more interesting. Angerworm says it right. It's just no contest. And if you think that you're good at fantasy football and yet you don't like auction drafting, like why? Yeah. Blake says it. It's just legitimately so fun. Each draft is different. And Matt says, yeah, you could redo the same draft. Let me see if this works here. Yeah. You could redo this same draft, as soon as this one's over, and everything's going to come out different. He's absolutely right. The way that the players are called out, the way that managers decide to attack it, everything could completely change if we just turned right around and did the same auction. That's what's so great about it. I have to say this, folks. There are so many smart people out there who are like, yeah, I don't like auction drafts. And I think to myself, why? You're so smart. You would take advantage of it. Folks, let me just say this. If you feel as though you have an edge on your draft room, you should be doing an auction, period. There's no reason not to. Now, I understand your league may not be into it. I understand you maybe not be able to convert people to it. I'm not here to tell you like, oh, this is super easy to get your league to do it. That's not my point. My point is, if you believe that there's an edge there, I promise you, your edge will be higher in an auction draft room. Okay, we see where Mazdog was chilling. He had Travis Hunter. Boy, that's a nice deal on Travis Hunter. And then he gets Ricky Pearsall. I kind of figured, I didn't want to say it earlier, like I said, the Hawthorne effect. I didn't want to say it earlier that Pearsall was going to get a nice price. But I knew that Pearsall was coming in over $10. You have to understand, folks. I want to say this again. Can I say it again? Everybody with me now. 1, 2, 3. Magnification effect. Everybody. Guys, it matters, man. Oh my gosh, it matters. The general idea of what the fantasy community is currently thinking about a player is so important. You're not just in that room to think about, oh, well, Ricky Pearsall is a $9 player. That's not what we're here for. You're here to play against this room. That's why I think AAV sucks, because you're here to play against this room. You're not here to play against 7,000 other rooms where you got some information. You're here to play against this room. And I'm telling you that if you want Ricky Pearsall in your auctions, you better have that surgical scalpel nomination where you just cut out the very perfect nomination at the right time. Otherwise, he's going for too much money. And let me say, too much is probably the wrong way to say it. He's going for more than you want him to go for. Pearsall is a trendy player right now. He will be expensive in your auction drafts. So you got to get that perfect surgical strike on Ricky Pearsall, or else you ain't getting him as cheap as he probably should go. Same thing with Emeka Egbuka. He's got a lot of helium in his ADP. And he goes for $10. I don't think that's a terrible deal in a vacuum, but we're not in a vacuum, are we? And $10 for Egbuka this late in the draft, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I'm not saying that's a bad call at all. Like, I'm not here to be like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. That's not my comment. My comment is, at this point in the draft, that's a lot. And so what I told you was we were going to see some random weird spikes, and we're seeing them. And I'm not saying that like bidding $10 for Egbuka is weird. I'm saying that the spike at this point in the draft is a bit outsized for the player that we're talking about. And, we're seeing that there's still a lot of players left on the board. Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa. I wasn't going to say it. I knew he was still on the board. And somebody's going to have to nail a second quarterback here. Nice job, Penny. He ends up with Tua for $11. He saved it. He was waiting a long time for a second quarterback, and now he's got him. Junior started out. He had a really nice team that he was building. After 12 for Swift and 21 for Pickens and 16 for Connor, he's now in a difficult spot because he doesn't have a second quarterback, and he's still sitting here looking at his third wide receiver as well with a $4 max bid. So I'm not like Junior has a really nice core, right? He's got a really nice core, but he's going to have to do some work on the wire for that quarterback spot. All right, where are we at? Chris Olave, $9. Again, what's happening in the room right now is that there's really not a market anymore, is there? There just isn't a market. Like the market is tapped out. People are just bidding if they can, and they're picking up the players that they can. Okay, I need to jack this thing down so we can get it going. We are 10 till 9. We're at pick 106. Okay, this is perfect. Or, after this one, we're going to let Team 12 nominate, and then I will briefly pause. It's going to be a 10-second pause for me to go and some Collins going for Jimmy Garoppolo. He is on the Matt Stafford is currently in a silver trailer getting needles shoved into his back. So he's got Jimmy Garoppolo there. I understand why you do that for $1. I understand that move. All right, this is the last nomination before I'm going to take a quick pause. Everybody, nobody go anywhere. This is not a break. This is not a break. I'm going to do a quick adjustment to the draft, and we're going to go from there. All right, Jordan Addison. Yeah, again, this is a player where it's going to be a stratifying player because nobody has any money. They don't want to spend money on a player that's going to be suspended for 3 games. So Brad is going to bid and see if Chad, are you going to take it to the $5? Is the Vikings fan going to go 5? Nope. So Addison goes for $4. Just a mega deal right there. Love it. Okay, do not nominate, please. Pause draft. Draft settings. Let's get it going. Fellas, be ready with your nomination. If it starts dragging on the nominations, I'll have to put that down to 10 seconds as well. But for right now, 10 seconds on your offering phase, okay? 10 seconds on getting your players, bidding on your players. Okay, here we go. We're ready to resume. Here we go. It's going to move faster now. Why would it go that quick? It just went to like, did I change the wrong thing? No. I don't know. Maybe your nomination time went down when I was trying to pause it. So sorry about that, Junior, if I messed that up for you. Okay. So I want to stress something that I talked about last night that's really important at this point in the draft. Okay. Everyone thinks that they get to this point in the draft and things are over. Okay. It is not over. There are really important players that are going to be auctioned off here in the next bit of time. So you have to stay locked in here. There are far too many players left for you to check out. There are guys that are going to have $3 and $4 bids left, and you got to make sure that you're bidding the right amount to shut them out. For example, one of these players has a $5 max bid. If you want to shut them out, you can't be asleep when you're trying to land a player and you're going up against a guy with an $8 max and you bid 7 and then he bids 8 and then you screwed yourself. Okay. You have to understand what people's maxes are and you have to play off of those maxes. You also have to understand where's the position scarcity right now, who needs what, and who's going to be willing to pay what for certain players. And then if you are figuring all that stuff out, that's going to shape not only your nomination, but it's going to shape how you attack the rest of the draft. So, okay, so Chad just goes all in on Mark Andrews to round out his lineup. I understand why you would do that. And we're going to see some players go far too cheap. Tyrone Tracy for $6. Guys, I said it last night, and I'm going to say it again tonight. I'm not a Tyrone Tracy guy, but he's going far too cheap. And that's the kind of player that you can pick up late in a Superflex because prices just tank. They just tank. And this room does not have a lot of money left for the number of players we still have left to draft. Sam Darnold just goes for $6. We just saw a starting quarterback go for $6. Right? That's where we are. And it proves to you that you can go late into this draft and go deep into the tiers and get some cheap quarterbacks because the money's going to run out. I'm not saying that you should bank on Sam Darnold as your plan. However, it's a nice plan for this late, right? He got Goff and Darnold for $20. And I don't mind that. Now, Ed's taken an interesting tactic here. He's got Caleb for 21, Goff for 14, and Darnold for 6. So he only spent $41 of his $200. He only spent 20% of his cap on his quarterbacks. That's not bad for a super flex for what he was able to put together. Having said that, I don't know if Ed's going to get partway into this season and be frustrated by the fact that he didn't spend a few more bucks. But he's also got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Cortland Sutton. He's got some nice players. So there are choices you have to make in a tough room like this. This is a hard room. You can't sit here and say, oh, I would have done this or I would have done that. This is a hard room. This is a hard room. And these guys are finding out. Guys, when I'm in the listener league with some of these guys, I've been in with most of these guys in a listener league before. It's tough. It's tough. I'm not going to sit here and just be like, yeah, I dominated. I crushed him anyway. These guys are good, but I crushed them. That's not how auctions work, man. These guys are good. They know what they're doing. They put you to the test. They put your back to the wall. They're not going to let you pick off too much value. And that's what's happened here. We've really got into this draft with, I think that we were a little bit hot early, and I think we're a little bit hot on the top end early in the draft, because I feel like some of these players that went for 45 to 50 should have been going for low 40s. And then, of course, that has a trickle effect, like a sort of, it runs down the board more than maybe it would if these players had gone a little bit cheaper early on. And that's why we're seeing here that we're at pick 117 and nobody's got a max bid above $10, right? We've got 1, 2, 3 guys above $10, and they're at 14, 12, and 11. So this is going to get crazy. And I'm here to tell you, guys, think about this. Your end game strategy, it's easy to be, you know how many questions I get about what do I do with my first nomination? Well, what do I do if I pay 51 for this guy? Those are the questions I get all the time. You know how many questions I get about what to do late in a draft, like right now? I've got a $4 max bid. I want to get this guy. How would you approach it? That's the kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's interesting for you to come to me and be like, hey, Drew, map out this. Like, it seems boring. I get that. But boring is what wins, because boring is figuring this stuff out ahead of time. What did I say a couple weeks ago? Would you like to play a game? Going back to the war games, okay? You have to figure this stuff out ahead of time. When I get late in the draft, who are going to be my nominations? Who am I going to rely on? And then when you're sitting there in the room right now, okay, you're sitting in the room right now, and you've got a $14 max bid. Who are the guys you're going after? Who are the guys that you're targeting? Because it's not just about like, oh, hey, I can still get this guy. It's about what nomination is going to get you that player for the cheapest price. When is that nomination going to get you there? And who am I up against that has a max bid that's going to challenge me? And do they have the roster spots and the particular roster spot? So, okay, this guy wants this player, but does he have the wide receiver spot? Does he need a wide receiver? Does he have the money to buy this player? Look at team 3. He needs an RB2. Okay. Now, he may very well be able to do fill that RB2 spot, no problem off the wire. But he has to think to himself, what's my nomination going to be? Or can I let these running backs run and I'm going to get one later? This is all so important. I'm here to tell you that early in a draft, you can make a $2 or $3 mistake on a big player. It's not going to affect you that much. You can make that up over the long course of an auction. But right now, this is when you make your money. This is when you decide, who am I nominating? Who am I going for? And trying to execute that plan. I said this last night in the Kings Classic. I got to the end of the draft and I thought the last 2 guys on my bench are going to be Caleb Williams and Taj Brooks, because I had some Bears pass catchers and I had Chase Brown. So I thought, I'm going to just grab these 2 guys. I thought for sure, because most of the players that were going at that point were going for $1 to $3. Caleb ends up going for $5 and Brooks goes for $6. I didn't have the money. And I told the story last night, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I didn't have the money I wanted to get both guys. Guess what? I got 0 of them because I screwed it up. And that could ruin my whole season. What if Patrick Mahomes sucks and then Caleb Williams is awesome because of Ben Johnson? And I didn't get Williams, and he would have been my starter over Patrick Mahomes. I could have ruined my season. You never know how a late game nomination or a late game play is going to change your season. And I can't stress enough that right now is when you make your money. And yes, like all the decisions you make up till now, they all matter, but you have to make your money right now. You have to make your money right now. I like what Scott Cobe is doing. He went out a little bit hot, but he's brought it back, and he's really got some depth with Geno Smith and Joe Flacco and Andrew Jones, or excuse me, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Demario Douglas. These aren't guys that you're super excited about, but isn't that the point? The point is you can get them cheaply. And so we've got, all right, so Mass Dog ends up finishing his team. Golf clap, everybody. Golf clap for Mass Dog is the first person finished in the draft. Thank you so much. He, not coincidentally, was the guy who was holding the money last, and he dropped the hammer and finished. That's what you want to do. If you end up, I talked about this earlier, that you don't want to have the most money at a certain point in the draft. But if you do, I want you to do what Mazdog did. I want you to go and just snap everybody up and spend your money before the end. Because the whole point of this is that when you have the hammer, oftentimes people kind of like turn up their nose like, I'm not spending that for that guy. And that's something I referenced on the show last night, and I reference in my show all the time on the Auction Brief podcast. It's the raw dollar fallacy. It's the idea that this player is not worth that much money. But I'm here to tell you that player is worth whatever the hell he's worth at that moment. So if you can land one of the best players left and you landed him for $6 more than he should be, who cares? You're not here to win the auction. You are. You're here to win the league. Okay. So it's not just about that particular player being too expensive. It's about what was happening at that moment in the room, and did it make sense for you to make that play? Okay. So I really believe that we get caught up in the raw dollar fallacy. Like, that guy's not worth this. He's worth it if you can land him on your team. You don't care. Who cares about showing that player on social media, being like, everybody can get in your mentions and go, great deal on that guy, excellent deal on that player. If you're not winning at fantasy football, who gives a crap? We're here to try to win, right? We're here to win the game, not to be like, look at all this value I got, bro. You see all the value, bro? That's not the game. The game is to pick up the players. So if you are sitting there in your draft and you find yourself with too much money, don't make the mistake that a lot of people make by being like, that's too much, I'm not paying that. That's too much, I'm not paying that. Spend the money. Just go out and spend the money. You're going to have a bunch of guys at the back of your roster that you paid too much for, but so what? You got the best available players left. It doesn't matter. Your job is to come out of there with the best possible roster. Don't fall prey to the raw dollar fallacy. Spend your money, ignore what the price is, get the guys on your team. Okay? If anybody doesn't know what the raw dollar fallacy is by now, you don't know what to do for you, because I am tired of hearing myself talk about it. Okay. Where are we sitting with max bids now? This is fun. This is the fun time, guys. We have 4, 2, 4, 1, 11, 3, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3. All right. So it looks like, so Ed's got 11 players, but he's got a max bid of $11. He's absolutely crushing everybody. He's got double the max bid of anyone else. So we'll see what Ed's waiting on here in just a few minutes. But we are getting deep into this thing, and we're going to turn into a modified snake before too long, which is my warm-up music, because that means I'm going to be shutting this thing down here probably in the next 15 minutes. But I love, look at that Colston Loveland for $1. I mean, can you talk about bigger upside than a guy like Loveland this late in the draft? I love that play for $1. But like what I did there. Javonte Williams for $2. Ed, is that who you're waiting on, buddy? We're going to have a good laugh about that one later. Ed was waiting on Javonte Williams, everybody. No, he wasn't. I'm kidding. I'm giving Ed some grief because Ed's a big supporter, and I love everything that he's done for me and supporting my work. But yeah. So what I want to say is, as we get near the end here, the most important things become roster spots, your nominations, and who has the money in the room that's going to stop you if you make a nomination of a player that you really want. And Ed's that guy right now. What's Ed need, and how is he going to stop you? That's what you're looking at. And when I talk about aiming nominations, this is one of those things. You can aim nominations at somebody to say, all right, well, Ed is clearly sitting on this player or that player because it's the best player left in the room. I'm going to call him out because I want to force him to spend some money. All right, so this is what I was talking about with tight ends, folks. Jake Ferguson just went for $1. I like Jake Ferguson. Like, don't get me wrong. I've been talking about him nonstop. If Dak Prescott plays the full year, Jake Ferguson will be a top 10 tight end. I'm not saying he's going to be awesome, 10, 11 points a game, but he's going to be a top 10 tight end. Getting him for $1, would you rather have him for $1, or would you rather have Hawkinson for $4, Kraft for $7, or Njoku for $7? I'm not talking about, hey, I think these players are better than that players. I'm just talking about it's $1. And late in these Superflex auctions, we're going to get weird prices like that. Ferguson's $1. Pitts is $2. These guys are Chris Godwin. What a great bet to make on a top level player for $3 late in the draft. And these are the kinds of things that I really want you to be doing. We are not here to go get a guy that's going to rush for 590 yards and 4 touchdowns. In deep drafts, that's important. And in situations where you need some depth, that's okay. That's okay. But we really want to be building around guys that have the ability to explode this late. And what's that kind of guy look like? Well, it looks like a Jaden Reed. It looks like a Jake Ferguson. It looks like these type of players, Chris Godwin. What I'd love to do, everybody is way off Godwin right now. It's so easy to have Chris Godwin be your wide receiver 5 or 6 right now. What are you losing? What are you losing? Okay. So yeah, Scott, I'm not killing you on Njoku. I love Njoku. And $7 is like, it's not an overpay in a vacuum. Having said that, I'd rather have a guy that's a little bit cheaper. So I understand. But yeah, Ed, you're all in on Javonte Williams. Come on now, buddy. We know. But what I'm telling you is that we want to go for these guys that just have this nuclear upside, right? Garendo is a perfect example of a player like this. And I'm going to submit to you that I'm a backup guy. Okay. Y'all just let Junior back up Christian McCaffrey for $1. I didn't want to say it while it was going on, but you just let the guy who had a $1 max bid take Christian McCaffrey's top backup for $1. Now, maybe you don't want to spend on Garendo. I get it. He's already banged up. But these are the kind of guys I'm talking about. They can go nuclear late in a draft. That's the kind of guys I want to be after. I don't want to be in on certain players that are going to plod along to an RB 31 finish. That may be okay for a couple roster spots. But in general, this late, just swing for the fences. You're going to cut some of these guys immediately anyway, right? You're going to go in there and be like, the flavor of the moment is this guy, and I need to cut somebody. Who's it going to be? It's going to be one of those players that you took at the end of the draft. And if they don't work out, they don't work out, right? You don't have to worry about, like, it doesn't do anything to you. You can just let that player sit on your bench or cut him. That's why I love the Chris Godwin play. You don't have any pressure to play Chris Godwin until late in the season because he's like your wide receiver 5 or 6, right? I would love to take Chris Godwin as my wide receiver 6, slam him on my bench, and just sit him there. And particularly in leagues where you have an IR spot, just get him. Just get him. So anger worm, the seething period. It's true. It's that period where, like, damn it. How did I not end up with him? How did I not get him? All right, we're getting near the end. I might just stick this out to the bitter end. Who votes for sticking this out to the bitter end? Let's just do it. Let's just run it. I mean, it's 10 after 9. I'm delirious. I've been talking for 4.5, almost 5 hours combined between 2 nights. Okay, there's a little spike there. Jalen Warren for $6. We see that little spike, right? Because he's the last real player left on the board that has some real potential to score points and be a part of your daily or your weekly lineup. So this late in the draft, we're gonna see that little weird spike there. So $6 for Warren. I don't think the price in a vacuum is bad, but it's a weird spike now, right? Does everyone understand what I mean there? So we're gonna see a modified snake here where we just got a couple people with $2 and $3 left to bid, but it's still impactful. I mean, don't sit here and tell me that you can't see the impact that these players are having late in this draft, because they are. It's big. Getting players like Cedric Tillman, Josh Downs, these are really talented players that if they hit in the right spot, look, when they named Joe Flacco the starter, I'm absolutely, yeah, it's the blueberry slushy. Bam, this thing's all melted. Boo. Folks, when you see a player like Cedric Tillman going late or Jerry Jeudy going real late, these guys are super cheap. And you know why? Because the quarterback situation is uncertain. But let me tell you, if you're late in an auction and you're going to get those guys for a couple bucks, who cares? If they only start for you for 6 weeks while Joe Flacco's in there until a rookie comes along, do you care? I don't care. If they're that cheap, I don't care. And it's kind of like the Najee Harris conversation. Like, he may go on the pup. He may sit for 4 weeks. So what? He's going to be $1. Who cares? If the guy comes back and he's getting 15 or 18 touches a game in a Greg Roman offense with a good defense, do you care? No, he's like your RB5 or RB6. Like, who cares? Take these opportunities to slam these little windows. I love Cedric Tillman early in the season. If I take Jordan Addison or Rashee Rice, you can bet your ass I'm going to have somebody like Cedric Tillman or Christian Kirk or something like that, right? Adam Thielen. Yes, Scott, exactly. These guys aren't exciting, but they're players that are going to help you limp through some of these situations. Team 12. Okay, yeah. All right, what about, boy, we got a lot of players to go. We're going to stick it out, folks. The numbers aren't dropping. People are interested. They're having fun. Let's stick it out, right? We're about to hit 1,000 viewers for the first time today. I find this odd that we're about to hit 1,000 viewers near the end, but people are tuning in. They're kind of popping in and out. So we're seeing these numbers climb, and I love it. I love it. So we're going to stick it out to the bitter end. I think we only got about 10, 15 more minutes because things are about to move real fast. Almost nobody can bid anymore. And again, I hate to hammer it too hard, but you need to look at this. If you're in the room right now, you have to know who can outbid you, and you have to know what that number is. So if I'm Ed, I've got a $3 max bid. I got to look around. Who can outbid me? Only one guy can. Okay. I got to pay attention to him and only him. He's the only guy I care about in the room right now, right? And Brad, the only person he cares about in the room right now is Ed. Okay. And so we're about to get into, like I said, basically like a snake. But if you have a $2 or $3 max bid right now, you have a ton of power. Pick out the guy you want. Make sure you get him. If it means nominating him, great. If it means waiting, great. That's your call. I don't know who you want, and I don't know who is going to be effective as a nomination, but that's what you got to be doing, and that's what you're doing right now. When you're waiting on these players to come out, that's what you're doing, okay? So we got Tyler Algier out there for $1. I figured somebody was going to go to on that. I think that this late, he's a $2 player, and he is, okay? So yeah, you should be spending all of your time sussing out which players are left that you feel are reasonably priced players. Reasonably productive players, not priced. There's going to be no prices. And you need to go after them. Pick out the players that you want. Hey, Ryan, by the way, sorry about the Najee Harris thing. You're probably sitting there over listening to the stream and going, Drew, shut the hell up. I'm about to nominate Najee. My bad. So your job between right now and the next time that you have to nominate is figuring out what's the optimal nomination. What's the perfect nomination? And what are your goals for the rest of the draft? I say this all the time. And just because we're at the end, I don't want you to think that we're done here, because in the middle of the draft, at the beginning of the draft, 1/3 of the way through, 2/3 of the way through, it doesn't really matter. I want you to always be thinking about what are your goals for the rest of the draft. Because at that point, like, I've got these 3 players, I've spent this much money. Where's my draft going? We don't spend enough time conceptualizing where that draft is going to go and where your auction should head next. We have to spend our time conceptualizing that. It's not just about like, I'm going to nominate this guy next, although that's important. I want you to know who you're going to nominate next. But more than that, I want you to just have an overall picture, a 30,000 foot view. I'm headed in this direction next. Okay. That's what you want to do. So Penny nails Ayuk for $2. I like that play. Tootin goes for $2. I like these plays because they have the upside to really deliver some big time weeks late in the season. So, all right. So how many times? Let's see. 1, 2. We've only got 2 players that can bid anymore. So this is gonna go fast. This is gonna turn into a snake here in just a second. And once it does, I think we can be done because we are about finished. There's still some players available, folks. And in a Superflex, yeah, nice play to try to grab a quarterback that you think might be relevant later. Okay. Well, folks, I think that's going to do it. We are about finished here. And this is almost exactly the same time that we finished last night. It's about 9:15. We're about 2 hours and 15 minutes in. And we really only have about a round and a half to go. And it's going to be all $1 players here in just a second. Tesla went for. He's done. Congratulations, Ryan. Thank you for being here. We don't have many players left. We're at pick 168. So, all right, here we go. Sprint to the finish. Folks, I think I'm going to let you go because we are officially at the point where nobody can bid anymore. So I think that's going to be it. I really want to hang on to see that number hit 1,000, but we're at 991. Folks, I said it last night, and I have to say it again. I told my wife, I don't want this thing to be a failure. I just want 100 people. I just want 100 people. I just want 150 people to come in and enjoy this and get something out of it and move things forward a little bit. If I can just take our auction piece on the board and just move it forward just a little bit, that's all I wanted to do with this thing. And I know that 3 nights is a lot to give up to get into this. But I wanted to do it because I felt like it was that important. And I hope that you all learned a lot through these 2 commentary streams. It's hard for me to remember all the stuff that my FWM has said over the last 5 hours, but it's all recorded. It's all on my YouTube page. You can just go there and check out the live streams and flip through them however you want. Pause it, take a look at some of the nominations that have happened and some of the prices that are coming off the board that I'm missing when I'm talking. This has been awesome. I'm going to end this right here by saying this. Hey, we're about to hit 1,000. I don't know that I can end it. I told you, folks. I just wanted a couple hundred people to show up, and we're there. We're there. This has been awesome. We are not done yet, folks. We are not done. We have one more night of Drew Davenport's Salary Cap Summit, sponsored by the Auction Brief podcast. I don't think we've ever had a 3-night run of auction/salary cap goodness in my entire time in this industry in the last 25 years. I haven't been working in it, but I've been in the industry playing fantasy football for a long time. This is my 7th year in the industry, but my 25th, 27th year playing fantasy football and doing auctions. I've never seen an event like this. I'm proud of that, but I also just really want everyone to hook into this feeling, this love for auction drafting, and push the barriers forward. We have to continue to demand that these sites care about auction drafting, okay? We have to demand it. If we don't demand it with our dollars and our time and our voices, it's never going to happen. And I'm here to help you guys get there. I'm here to help all you people who love auction drafting get there. We will get there. We'll make this more than a niche if we care about it enough. All right. off my soapbox. This has been the thrill of a lifetime these last couple of nights. The number of people that have showed up blows me away. Love you all. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Matt, for showing up. Jameson, JJ, all the people that made this happen. Brian Drake, all the people behind the scenes that made this happen. Thank you so much. We aren't done, folks. One more night. One more night. Tomorrow night, 7:30. Don't miss it. We've got Jim Coventry, Scott Pianowski, Joe Dolan, Dave Richard. We've got a special surprise guest. We've got Matt, the auctioneer who owns the auction house. He's going to give us insight. We're going to get so much stuff. One more night. We're going 7:30 to 9 tomorrow night. 90 minutes tomorrow night. We're going to go and talk about all this stuff. So tune in tomorrow night. Same bat channel, different bat time. Okay. 7:30 tomorrow night, not 7:30. I'll put the link up after we're done tonight. Don't forget, these things are recorded. They're on my YouTube channel, and you can check them out anytime. Thank you so much. Yes, Matt, auctions are awesome. Yes, baby. Scott, thank you so much. Guys, love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I'm hyped up. I'm about to get off the feed here, and I love it. So, no, there's no draft tomorrow night. No draft tomorrow night. There is just commentary on what happened tonight and last night, but also ways we can move the auction industry forward, tips and tricks, things that you should be doing, things that you should be thinking about, stuff that I might have missed. We're hitting all that stuff. It's going to be one more amazing night of auction salary cap goodness. 7:30 tomorrow night, same place. Come to my YouTube channel, but I will have it linked on my Twitter. All right. I will be flapping my FWM for sure tomorrow night. I was about to sign off. Anger, great joke. Honey, the draft is over. I've had a lot of blueberry drink tonight. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, we folks, we made it. We made it to the end. The draft is officially over. And yes, I've had too much blueberry drink. I think that's it, folks. We did it. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for all the participants. Hey, we hit 1,000 right before I was about to sign off. Woo! Yes, baby. Yes. Unqualified success. Let's move this thing forward. I know we can do it. I know we can do it. Thank you so much for being here tonight, guys. This has been awesome. Great job in the draft room. Great job to everybody tuning in, leaving me comments. This has been amazing. We're not done yet. One more night, 7:30. Tomorrow night, we're going to wrap up the Salary Cap Summit. Don't forget to get there. Get in the comment section. Let's screw around. Let's get weird. Let's have a lot of fun. Tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern. Link will go up soon. Thank you so much for being here. The auction brief is adjourned, and I am out.